Oh, sorry, my mic came loose for a second. Let me say.
Oh, okay.
So you're talking like I just touched it slightly and it like rolled over, and now it's like messing the audio input. Okay, sorry about that. It was just jarring because I just touched it and that thing, like it spun over. And you got way loud all of a sudden, and then like, what's happening?
Look, let's just chalk this up to the curse of Halloween Havoc, right?
Exactly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Go to the Ring, where we take a look at the good old days and not so good old days of World Championship Wrestling series by series. I'm your host, Bob Moore, and I'm joined by a suspiciously Alec Pridgeon-shaped masked figure, the Let's Go to the Ring Halloween Phantom. Oh, he's pulling off the mask. Oh, what a shocker! It's Alec Pridgeon!
Really, surprises are key to Halloween. I figured this would be the biggest I could give you.
Yeah. You being you is quite a shock.
I mean, my mustache does show under the mask. It does help a little bit.
How's it going tonight, Al?
It's going all right. How about yourself?
It's going okay. I will apologize to our audience if the sound quality ends up not as good this time. I am recording for the first time from a new apartment, and I am not quite sure of the right position for the microphone and everything, so I'm hoping I don't have a tremendous amount of echo in the final edit, but we shall see. If it does, just consider it spooky atmosphere.
There you go.
Tonight, we are taking a look at Halloween Havoc 1992, Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal. Another of your regular reminders during this series that the folks at WCW are really, really big fans of the Mad Max franchise, though at least they inverted Beyond Thunderdome's Bust a Deal, Face the Wheel chant this time, instead of ripping it off wholesale.
True.
Yeah. Halloween Havoc 1992 was held on October 25th, 1992 at the Philadelphia Civic Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in front of 7,000 fans, 5,000 paid. That's the same arena as the 1989 show, with about 300 less in attendance, so WCW has been reasonably consistent. And it's Philly, so I imagine the crowd is going to be consistent too. Consistently weird. Halloween Havoc 1992 received 130,000 pay-per-view buys, 10,000 less than last year, but the second highest WCW pay-per-view of 1992, behind only February's Super Brawl 2, which had 135,000. Before the show proper, there was one dark match. Eric Watts and Van Hammer versus the Vegas Connection, Diamond Dallas Page and Vinny Vegas. I am so very torn on my feelings on missing this one.
Yeah.
We miss out on very early DDP and Kevin Nash as Vinny Vegas, but then we would have to watch Van Hammer.
Yeah, it's weird. I almost feel bad for Eric Watts here.
I do, yeah. I don't really mind Eric Watts as much after that one kind of nice mat work focus match he had with Regal at Beach Blast 1993. But admittedly, his name doesn't fill me with enthusiasm either. But, I mean, between him and Van Hammer, yeah, Eric Watts any day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think on balance, I'm glad that we missed this one, but it's closer than you would think. So, can WCW finally break the streak of, it's all right, I guess, Halloween Havocs? To find out, let's go to the ring. If there is one thing that this series keeps nailing without a problem, it's the opening video packages. Once again, this one focuses around art of a haunted house on a stormy night. But this time, we get Sting doing his stinger call to the moon like a werewolf, and Jake Roberts laughing in front of the special wheel of match types that we'll see later in the show, before the door opens and ghostly Ron Simmons flies out. We enter the house and see the ghosts of Barbarian, Masahiro Chono, and Rick Rude as well, before the Halloween Havoc logo comes on screen accompanied by the flash of lightning. The ghosts even get spooky woo kind of noises this year.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
What's better, this year the order the ghosts appear in actually makes sense. Sting is facing Jake Roberts. Ron Simmons is facing Barbarian. Chono is facing Rick Rude. It's like someone backstage actually thought it through for once. I love these opening videos. We will have to see if this continues for the full series, because if it does, I think we might have to add a intro video package award for this series, Al.
Yeah, that's fair.
So from my recollection, 1995 may be pretty hard to top. That's the Vampire Tony Schiavone.
Oh, I knew that was 94 and 95, yeah.
Loads of fireworks greet us as host Tony Schiavone welcomes us to the show alongside the living legend, Bruno Sammartino. Somewhere, Larry Zbyszko is losing his Kind of neat, almost medieval or gothic font choice for the show this time, so someone's thinking thematically there too. Tony builds up the spin the wheel, make the deal theme. Tony says that there's 12 possible matches for the spin the wheel, make the deal match, and they're lights out, as in non-sanctioned by WCW. That term really confused you and me on our first watch because lights out is sometimes used as a match gimmick itself, right?
Correct, yeah.
Focus on the arena lights actually being dimmed or off for the match, or I think sometimes it means the blindfold match as well.
I think there's one instance where they do that for like it involving like a knockout as well.
Right, yeah. Knocking someone's lights out would make sense, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a Duggan match that involves that.
Would make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Sammartino says an unsanctioned match is very dangerous and could be career-ending for either man. The full list of match types is shown. A Texas bull rope match, a spinner's choice match, a Russian chain match, a dog collar match, an I quit match, a barbed wire match, a cage match, a match with lumberjacks with belts, a Prince of Darkness match, which I believe would probably be a blindfold match.
Probably, yeah.
A Texas death match, a coal miner's glove match, and a first blood match. Now, it's worth noting that 3 of those involve the guys using or being attached by a rope or a chain. It's also worth noting that for some reason, spinners in Spinner's Choice is plural.
Yeah.
We're only going to have Sting come out to spin, so presumably it would be his and only his choice, right?
It should be Stinger's choice.
Stinger's choice, right, yeah.
Yeah.
What's weirder is that at certain points, they do talk about Spinner's Choice on the show, and it sounds like it means that it would be Jake's choice. Which is all kinds of incorrect for naming then. It should be Snake's choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Tony turns to the WCW World Heavyweight title match, and we see video of Cactus Jack training Barbarian by having large men slam him over and over.
Yep.
I could be wrong, but I think one of those guys was Ice Train, wasn't it?
Correct. The last guy is Ice Train, yeah.
Okay, cool. It's in there for a quick shot, but I was like, that looks like him. As Tony points out, that was training to help Barbarian learn to absorb Simmons' power slam. Sammartino advises Simmons to be cautious with Cactus Jack being at ringside. Tony also covers the Unified World Tag Title match. Dr. Death, Steve Williams, has lost his partner, Terry Bam Bam Gordy, but has a new partner, Stunning Steve Austin.
So, a couple years earlier, when he broke into the industry, Stunning Steve Austin came in and they said, look, you can't be Steve Williams, which is your actual name, because there already is a Dr. Death Steve Williams, and he's kind of a big star. So Austin had to think of another name, and he thought of the $6 million man, Steve Austin, and thus it was born. That means we are getting the tag team of Steve Williams and Steve Williams.
I love that. I love that. The level of coincidence necessary for this to happen is great.
I know, right? It's one thing if there's 2 wrestlers with the same first name existing just at the same time. That's probably not that common, right?
Yeah.
Even Williams is a general kind of common use name. It's still a coincidence that they're both wrestling currently at the same time. They could wrestling different eras, different regions even. But they're in the same company, and then some of them in the same match just because of stuff we'll talk about. Fates aligned to give us this very unique version of a twin tag team.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating that happened. I just adoring of that.
Mm-hmm.
They will face champions Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham, who have been at odds with each other. We even get footage of them arguing at ringside during a match and trading slaps. Sammartino says it could be hard for Windham and Rhodes as they prep to face Windham and Gordy. Fortunately, he corrupts to Williams and Gordy a moment later.
Mm-hmm.
Windham and Gordy would be a cool team.
Yeah.
Tony finally turns to Rick Rude's situation. He is challenging Chono for the NWA World Heavyweight title, but he has to defend his own US title first. So he has to wrestle twice tonight. San Martino says it's a tough situation, but if he succeeds, he's going to be known as one of the greatest of all time. Tony says there's going to be 2 referees for the NWA World title match, one chosen by each side, and he throws to Missy Hyatt to ask if she has found out who Rude's choice is. Missy, who is dressed in a manner I can only describe as sexy gold Statue of Liberty attending a masquerade ball, has not. She does, however, imply that Rude may not actually be in both title matches tonight and throws to our commentary team, Jim Ross, and the man that she's voting for President of the United States, Jesse the Body Ventura. We cut to JR and Jesse, the latter wearing a Grim Reaper cloak and mask, which would not make me vote for him for president, I have to say. Kind of a bad omen.
You don't fear the Reaper?
I do fear the Reaper, which is why I don't want him as my president.
Fair enough. Some people vote based on fear, what can I say?
Jesse acts like he's scared of JR's mask. JR is not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
JR sarcastically no-sells. They talk over the spin the wheel situation, and Jesse is excited. We see a clip from backstage where WCW has all the various special props for the matches lined up on the wall, revealing that planning for 12 possible matches is considerably more expensive than planning for just one. JR says they don't know what the spinner's choice is other than that Jake said his Cobra will be involved in it. But as we said, Jake is not the one spinning. Sting is. Why does Jake get to choose?
Maybe if Sting picks, he'd make the Cobra the special guest ref. You'd be curious to see how that would work.
Honestly, that's not out of character for Sting. I can see him being like, yeah, I can totally trust a Cobra, right?
Yeah. Well, based on the logic that if he brings it with them to ringside, like as his second or like his manager or whatever you'd call a snake in this situation, it could hurt him. Where if it's the referee can't betray him, you know?
Oh, yeah. There has never been a match in the history of professional wrestling where a referee betrayed someone. Definitely.
Exactly, yeah.
There's definitely not one in 1997 involving Sting himself and Hulk Hogan.
No, can't think of one.
No, yeah, me neither. JR says that there's anti-Cobra venom on site. Unless he means venom specifically meant for killing a Cobra, I think he might have meant Cobra anti-venom.
Tomato Omato.
And after that quite long introduction, it's finally time for our first match.
Yeah, I checked. It's like a 5-minute intro for the whole show. I'm like, wow, that's kind of long.
Yeah, there's a lot they have to go through for this one. It's pretty considerable. So our first match is Michael P.S. Hayes, Beautiful Bobby Eaton, and the Enforcer, Arn Anderson, versus Johnny Gunn, Shane Douglas, and the Z-Man, Tom Zenk, in a 6-man tag match. The referee for this one is Mike Atkins.
So at this point, the Dangerous Alliance, which we got introduced to in the previous episode, is now mostly not a thing. They don't really team together after the Wrestle War match that didn't exactly go their way. That's why we have the team of Eaton and Anderson, who are part of that group, teaming up with Michael P.S. Hayes, who is, as we kind of talk about in the match itself, sort of acting as a manager, but also a commentator and sometimes a wrestler.
Oh, okay.
Notably, Zink and Gunn are a regular tag team throughout the, I guess, B and C shows, as they were at this point. Although, I did find it interesting. Right before this show, Zink worked a tour of Japan. Yeah, he tagged with Jim Neidhart, who was, I don't know if he's technically part of this roster, he might have just been aligned with New Japan. It's kind of hard to tell. Because, his history of in and out of companies due to various personal and other reasons, it's hard to keep track of where he is at most times. The team, from looking at Cage Match, which is a very helpful resource in these situations, pretty much lost every match they had. However, they did lose him 2 names you would recognize if you listened to our previous series about the WCW New Japan Super Shows.
Oh, cool.
Names such as Shinya Hashimoto, Hiroshi Hase, and Riki Chosu all got the W over this team.
So Tom Zenk is effectively an extended member of the Hart Foundation.
Yeah, true. Given that weird brief period where Owen Hart wrestled for WCW before WWF, it really does connect somehow.
Yeah. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, the entrance tonight is just a curtain. Hayes, Eaton, and Anderson are out first. With this lineup, they are obviously heels. We're in Philly, and it's Halloween Havoc with a Freebird on the team, so obviously they get massive cheers.
Yeah.
And the faces, entering second, get booed heavily, despite Johnny Gunn and Shane Douglas being from Pennsylvania. The streak continues. Gunn is even from Philly.
That could work against you. If don't have good rep in town, that could hurt you.
Yeah, he was a jerk to someone at a sandwich shop the day before or something. And
yeah. Yeah, we know that guy. He's got his unpaid parking tickets.
Anderson and Gunn start, and Anderson pinches Gunn's cheek. Gunn angrily bats his hand away. Atkins breaks it up, so Anderson cheap shots Gunn, but Gunn somewhat slowly fights back. And they build to all three faces drop-kicking all three heels, including Z-Man drop-kicking Anderson off the top rope to the floor and posing. To boos. Z-Man in, and he fights off Anderson, then Eaton, as the crowd cheers the heels. Then massively cheers for Hayes when he's tagged in. Jesse is in disbelief. Welcome to Philly, and Halloween Havoc in general with a Freebird, Jess. Hayes struts for the crowd, but Z-Man, then Douglas, work his arm. Hayes tags Eaton, who quickly cheap shots Douglas, but Douglas counters with a nice delay head scissor and a kind of simplified dragon screw leg whip that Jesse dubs a leg drag for its resemblance to an arm drag. Jesse says he doesn't like Douglas as he thinks he's a right-wing Republican. Okay then. Tag to Z-Man, but Eaton pokes his eyes, and he, Anderson, and Hayes trade off wearing Z-Man down using some quick tags. Eaton even tags Arn mid being atomic dropped, leading to Arn clotheslining an unaware Z-Man after he just dodged an Eaton clothesline. That earns Arn massive cheers, so he just goes with it and pumps up the crowd before pinning for two. I don't remember exactly where it is, but there's one point where Arn visibly shrugs at the reaction he's getting. It's just like, oh, hell with it.
Yeah, pretty much.
The double teams continue, but Z-Man counters a Hayes suplex with his own and tags Douglas to virtually no reaction. Ouch.
Yeah.
Douglas runs wild, but as he tries to suplex Anderson, Eaton chop blocks him to massive cheers. Double ouch. Anderson works the leg with stomps and drops, tags Eaton, and holds Douglas for a top rope Eaton knee drop to the leg, and Eaton slaps on the figure four and gets leverage from Hayes for a few 2 counts, as Z-Man and Gunn, whose name I had literally forgotten by this point as it had been so long since he'd been in the match, inadvisably protest and distract the ref, allowing for more cheating. Douglas turns the hold over, but Eaton tags Anderson to take over. Douglas dodges a punch and atomic drops Anderson, but he bounces off the ropes and they knock heads. Tag to Hayes and tag to Gunn. Gunn lands punches, back body drops Hayes, and slams Eaton and Hayes, and everyone's into brawl. Z-Man dumps Anderson over the top rope, and Douglas counters nothing in particular by Eaton off the top rope with a belly-to-belly suplex. Z-Man sidekicks Hayes, and Gunn hits the Thez press on Hayes for the 3 count and the win. The faces celebrate to the boos of the crowd. It's not universal, a lady in the front row is clearly pleased, but this was not the result that the crowd wanted overall. For crap's sake, WCW, at least don't have them pin the Freebird on Halloween Havoc, you have to know by now. Jesse expresses disbelief that the ref counted with so many illegal men in the ring, and notes the crowd's disapproval. Thoughts on this one?
This is a pretty enjoyable match. It definitely helps in a weird way that the crowd is just so odd for it. Because in most cases, when the crowd is not into the match the right way, it can be very distracting.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a certain weird charm to this, especially because, and it's not really their fault, it's really due to the way they're booked. But the face team is just really kind of generic white dudes in the trunks that do real basic stuff. So in a weird way, the heels are much more interesting just to watch.
Yeah.
Because they have their own characters and they have their own unique looks.
The crowd at least is into the match in some way.
Yes.
So they didn't decide to just ignore the match and play with a beach ball like we've seen on other shows.
Right.
They decided to cheer for the opposite side of what they were expected to cheer for, but they did decide to cheer for a side.
Yeah. It's definitely weird hearing people boo Shane Douglas in Philadelphia just about 2 years before ECW begins.
Yes, like the biggest star in Philly for a generous portion of ECW's run.
Yeah.
is getting just booed out of the building here. And this is the second time.
Yeah, it's true. Makes you wonder if that was a motivation and he becomes, the evil Shane Douglas, like, as a heel champion. If he just really embraced that, and, like, uses that in promos about how he hates people here because look at how they treated me when I was younger.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, that's famously how Rock formed his heel persona, right? Was like, he was legit angry about the reaction that he got the first time he came in when he felt he was doing his best, but he decided to channel that into his heel side. So I wouldn't be surprised if Shane Douglas did the same thing.
Yeah. And if anyone would channel sort of petty aggression into a character, it's definitely Shane Douglas.
This is fair.
Yes. His old character for several years was, I hate Ric Flair. They didn't even meet for quite a long time.
Yes.
In general, I did like the match, though. Crowd aside, I thought it was a good mix of action. The 6-man aspect I discussed before allows for quicker tags in and out and more changing. So it's less of a, we're going to work this one hold for like 3 minutes and you struggle a bit. It's more interchanging. I will say there's some inconsistency in how the match story is told. It's like, oh, we're working this leg. Oh, never mind, we're not doing that anymore. And now the heels are in charge. The leg's just fine, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the finish was interesting because it's like, there's this whole story of, the real experienced heel tag team. They can control the ring. They know these tricks. And then the faces just go, let's just all run in the ring and fight at the same time. The ref will just let us do it.
It's not an outright bad ending, but it does feel strange in two ways, I think. Number one, like you said, and like Jesse points out, why is the ref counting when all these people are still in the ring? The tag team breakdown is kind of a well-established thing, but oftentimes it does still end with like the illegal men going out of the ring or at least getting out of the way for the ref to count the pinfall. But this time, everyone's just active and the ref's just like, nope, I'm going to count.
Yeah, Shane Douglas is literally giving a suplex to the guy next to the person being pinned.
Yes.
Is it weird to anyone else that the person who's being thrown over the top of the outside is just not mentioned by commentators or anybody throughout the match?
Yeah, that is very weird that at the end of the match, someone gets thrown over the top rope, which would normally be a DQ, and they basically don't mention it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an enjoyable match. I just wish that the ending wasn't just so sort of chaotic and sort of rushed in there. It kind of breaks up the whole story of the team that can control the rules and use them advantage because the faces just come in and fight and the ref's like, yeah, rules don't matter.
Yeah. Bizarro World crowd reaction aside, something we're growing quite used to on this series, this was a really nice opener with the usual fast 6-man pace and frequent changes of action. The faces were pretty generic, but did their part to keep up the pace and show off some nice moves. Douglas in particular looked quite good at some points as he had his own unique style of moves that stood out, and Z-Man did his best at being face in peril. The crowd just didn't care. The bulk of the character work and therefore storytelling of the match, though, was on the heel team, which smoothly executed a vast array of clever strategies and dirty tricks that kept the match interesting straight through, probably bemused as each and every one got cheered. Philly, man.
Mm-hmm.
Credit to the heels, especially Arn and Hayes, for just going with the crowd reaction and playing to them after a bit. Hayes doesn't go as far as he did with the 1989 match, but he gives off the same vibe. All told, it's a good opener with fun heel tactics that I really enjoyed, even if the crowd's reaction makes it a bit of a strange watch.
Shane Douglas would use the momentum of this win to challenge for the WCW Tag Team titles at the next Clash show, but who will be his partner? Spoiler alert, it's not Johnny Gunn.
It's significantly better than Johnny Gunn, as I recall.
Yes.
JR throws to Hyatt, who is by Rude's locker room, unable to get in. She spots Harley Race and asks what he's doing there, and if he can get her in. He says he's there to watch a WCW World title match, and to answer her question, no. He goes in, she tries to sneak in anyway, and a very thick arm blocks her way. She says that's the first time she's not been invited into a locker room, and throws to Tony. Tony notes that Race is a 7-time former world champ, and Bruno says that if Race wanted to watch the match, he could just watch on pay-per-view. He doesn't have to go into Rude's room. He says something is up. Race has something up his sleeve. Tony gives us a let's go to the ring.
Yeah.
Let's go to the ring, fans, for our next event.
So our second match is Flyin' Brian Pillman versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. The referee for this one is Randy Anderson.
Pillman turned heel pretty recently, but what happened basically was he was scheduled to challenge Brad Armstrong for the WCW Light heavyweight title. However, Armstrong was injured for a little while. They used the rarely implemented 30-day rule where if he can't defend the title, it's vacated. What's extra curious is they then decide, oh, well, due to complication to getting people to show up for a tournament, we're going to hold a tournament in like February of next year. And this is September when it's happening. So it's like, yeah, enjoy having no title for several months.
Oh my gosh.
And also, shortly after all of this happens, Brett Armstrong comes back and wrestles.
So we stripped him of the title because he couldn't defend it for 30 days, and then we decided to not have the title for longer than he was away.
Correct, yes.
Jeez.
I mean, there's a logic to the whole you can't have the title thing, but it's weird that then the title's just vacant for like 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
An interesting flip of fortune, however, on the exact same show, Ricky Steamboat would win the TV title off of then champion Stunning Steve Austin. However, his run would be fairly short, as he would lose it to a then recently turned heel Scott Steiner. I'll get more into the Steiner issue later involving the tag match and just how complicated that gets. But essentially, they started doing a story where Scott was a solo act and defending the champion as a heel. A proto example of what would be his later heel run we'd see when he'd become full-on Big Pump Scott Steiner.
Mm-hmm. You can tell Pillman is a heel now because his music plays for quite a while before he comes out, whereas last time he got to the ring before the first few measures finished. He brushes off the crowd as he comes out and gives a wonderfully sarcastic smile in the ring. Steamboat's triumphant music is super cool, and he gets a huge reaction from the crowd, so we're not in Bizarro World for this match at least.
Yeah.
If they booed Steamboat, I might never forgive them.
That's fair.
Very cool, the Dragon G for Steamboat, and cool Red Dragon themed tights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pillman still has the same outfit as last year. He has turned heel, but he hasn't really been re-gimmicked yet. Jesse summarizes this pretty well. Not two of the biggest men in wrestling, but definitely two of the most talented. Steamboat gets a couple early pin attempts off shoulder blocks, but Pillman shoves him over the top rope. But Steamboat skins the cat back in and rolls him up for two. Pillman sends him into the turnbuckle on the kickout and brags to the crowd, but Steamboat plays possum and slaps on an armbar when he comes over, then works the arm with arm bars, an arm drag, wrist locks, a chop, a hammerlock, and knee strikes, and slams Pillman. But Pillman rakes the eyes. JR and Jesse talk over Steamboat being more the power wrestler versus the faster Pillman, whereas normally Steamboat is the speed wrestler in matches. Steamboat proves them right with a double-handed elevated choke and continues the beatdown, but Pillman collapses repeatedly on whips, so Anderson will check on him, then cheap shots Steamboat while he's distracted and lands some blows to the face, and counters a comeback with a head scissors that actually earns him some cheers for two. He quickly chokes Steamboat so the crowd won't treat him like a good guy for fancy moves. Steamboat counters a hip toss with a backslide for two. More choking, and Pillman puts him up top and slaps him, but Steamboat throws him to the mat, but Pillman counters a second rope splash with a drop kick for multiple 2 counts. Pillman complains, and Steamboat back suplexes him. Both men are down, up at 6. Pillman counters a whip into a sleeper hold and climbs on Steamboat's shoulders, but Steamboat fights back and eventually charges to the corner and ducks, sending Pillman face first into it, twice, to knock him off. Pillman stuns Steamboat with a rope snap, but Steamboat flare karmas him from the top. Pillman flees outside, gets Steamboat to chase him, and knees him when they re-enter, but Steamboat fights back, so Pillman flees again. Steamboat fights him outside, and Jesse says he hasn't learned anything, only for Steamboat to prove otherwise by waiting for Pillman to charge him as they re-enter, then knocking Pillman's legs out from under him. Pillman knee strike and second rope crossbody for 2, but Steamboat backbreakers him, then hits a top rope sunset flip for 2, reversed by Pillman for 2, and countered again by Steamboat for the 3 count and the win. Massive cheers by the crowd for that. Steamboat poses in victory, and a dejected Pillman paces in the background. As we cut to replay, Pillman grabs Anderson to have some words. Thoughts on this one?
I thought this is a very good match. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise with the two people we have involved. As I mentioned, it's interesting to see Steamboat play a different role here. As like I said, he's often a smaller wrestler, or at very least, he's not as in control. Even Flair is not bigger than him necessarily, but obviously Flair works the leg, and then he's got constantly fight back up underneath of that. So seeing him work more of a power style is very fascinating to see here.
Yeah.
Pillman for his part as well, I thought did a good job of being a heel. As you mentioned, he hasn't been re-gimmicked yet, so he's still normal Brian Pillman, but just doing heelish moves. So it definitely is, it's a step in the right direction. What really worked for me at this match is just how competitive it is. There's never a point for too long where one guy's in control. As we talked before, Steamboat's really good about constantly being active, even when like working through a hold or trying to fight his way out of something.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's never really a true lull in the action. I will say this match is also helped by a thing I should mention, which is that the top rope rule has been gotten rid of now. And I was going through watching WCW Saturday Nights for information here. They actually opened a show where, in great detail, Bill Watts goes through and explains what's legal and what's not legal. Basically, you can do anything on the top rope except knee drop someone to the head. That's automatically disqualification still.
Okay.
But you can knee drop into the leg, as we saw in the previous match, and that's fine.
Interesting.
I definitely liked just how back and forth this one was. I was curious to see how they handled because, like I said, Pillman is a smaller wrestler. So the question is, how is he going to work the heel style? And the answer is just wrestling very similar to how he wrestled as the face, obviously adding in the choking and, other sort of heelish moves there. But there's interesting parallels between like the match we saw recently where it's him and Luger, but now he's a heel against Steamboat.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't change up his actual in-ring style that much at this point. He just becomes more of a jerk.
Yeah.
He just constantly makes sure that you know that he's a real jerk and an arrogant guy and too self-assured and cocky and everything. I feel like if this were the later 90s, this might not be enough. But in the early 90s, people are still reacting to just that type of character as a bad guy rather than a cool heel.
The finish is interesting to me because I totally get what they're going for. You're really leaning into the pure wrestling aspect and just Steamboat getting the counter on the move. At the same time, it doesn't give you a truly decisive finish because it definitely feels like they're building up to more Pillman and Steamboat action, which obviously I have no problem with. But as a ending for the match, it could be stronger. But it's effective for what it is.
I think what works about the ending to me is that it looks like, it doesn't look like Steamboat just got lucky, but it looks like it's just a matter of him having some more experience, but Pillman also almost getting there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good one for not crushing Pillman when he's trying to get started. If for whatever reason you don't want him to beat Steamboat here, I think it's actually a good way of having him lose, that it doesn't feel like he got solidly beaten. It feels like in that moment Steamboat outwitted him, but it could have gone the other way.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I thought this was terrific. Pillman had quite recently turned heel here and was immediately given one of the two best guys in the company to get booed against.
Yeah.
Ricky Steamboat. The other would be Sting, of course.
Naturally, yeah.
What a way to get to establish your heel persona, right?
Mm-hmm.
And establish it Pillman does, doing a great job of showing the cocky, arrogant jerk persona that he's later going to use as part of the Hollywood Blondes. Steamboat, as one would expect, gives him a really good match, letting him show his stuff and playing the perfect likable babyface to make sure Pillman gets really good heel heat. It's neat, too, for letting Steamboat play pure power wrestler at times, as the commentators point out, and as you were talking about, Al.
Mm-hmm.
Steamboat's often facing guys about his size or larger, so while he's hardly a cruiserweight, he doesn't normally play quite as power-oriented as he does in this match. He gets to throw the somewhat smaller Pillman around quite aggressively at times.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one minor complaint I have, I'd say that there's maybe a tad too much of the Steamboat Flair formula in this, including the Flair Karma spot and some chop exchanges, for instance. It's a formula that works, but it's a little bit recognizable. But again, Pillman is very new to being a heel, so that's forgivable. It lets him use a good outline and build off of it. Overall, it's a really excellent and very fun watch that lets Pillman establish his character while facing one of the best in the business.
I talked about this when we watched this before, but it reminded me of an example of a match that stands out for the reason we talked about, which is someone just wrestling differently because of the opponent they have. The one I just remember was the Eddie Guerrero tribute show. It's the Raw after, unfortunately, he passed away, where the main event match is Rey Mysterio and Shawn Michaels.
Right. Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
I mean, besides just being a good match, it's interesting because Shawn Michaels is like Steamboat, is playing the power wrestler. He's like doing power slams and suplex, and you're like, it's almost been fun for him to finally get to do that, because normally even at that point, at best, he's the same height as some of these guys, and still probably 20 pounds lighter.
Yeah. You get a lot of that from Rey Mysterio and WCW as well. I remember us talking about on some of his matches in like 96, 97, 98. You have him versus a guy that is normally the smaller wrestler in a match, but because he's against Rey Mysterio, he's getting to do the power bombs and heavier looking moves than he normally gets to do.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Pillman would enter the Battle Bowl tournament because that was brought back for some reason at Starrcade 92. As you'll know if you listen to the episode, it is thankfully a much truncated or shrunk down version of the tournament.
Yes.
Mixed in with other non-tournament matches, so that show is a lot better for that reason.
Yeah, Starrcade 92 was much better than Starrcade 91. It had a lot of quite interesting matches mixed in with the Battle Bowl stuff, and the Battle Bowl stuff itself was far more tolerable.
Yeah. Like 4 Battle Bowl matches in the main event, not, 11.
Yes.
Or however many it felt like.
Yeah, 2/3 of eternity, I think.
Fair enough. As for Steamboat, he'll also be busy that night, and the two of them will cross paths, which I'll talk about a little more later.
We cut to Teddy Long, who is with NWA World Heavyweight Champion Masahiro Chono and his entourage, including Kensuke Sasaki, NWA President Sakaguchi, and New Japan representative Hiro Matsuda. Matsuda, by the way, was also famous as a trainer of quite a few wrestlers over the years, most notably for our purposes, including Ron Simmons, Scott Hall, The Great Muta, and even Hulk Hogan, among many others.
True, yeah.
He actually resided in Tampa, Florida, late in his life, until his passing in 1999.
Oh, neat.
Long introduces the Japanese contingent and notes that Missy Hyatt hasn't been able to find out Rude's choice of referee. He asks Matsuda who Chono will select. Matsuda confers with Sakaguchi, who indicates Sasaki. Matsuda gently says Sasaki will be the special referee. Long gets a little tongue-tied with the name. Not that I have room to talk since I regularly somehow screw up Long's name. What was the one time? Theodore?
That sounds right, yeah.
Long also says there's been a ruling concerning Rude's U.S. title match, and he throws to Tony Schiavone, who is with Bill Watts. Tony asks Watts about Sasaki, and Watts says he fits all the criteria, and that we know Harley Race is going to be Rude's referee choice. Wait, huh?
How do we know that?
As late as Teddy Long's part of this segment, no we didn't. Watts says both have experience and will referee well. Tony asks about Dr. Death's choice of tag partner, Steve Austin, and Watts says that Gordy has been suspended indefinitely for breach of contract by the WCW. He didn't even come from the WWF recently, did he?
No, I don't believe so.
I guess he technically worked for like the UWF or something like that before this, though, so
yeah, just
he has that kind of excuse anyway.
That's fair.
Watts says the fans are going to get a title match, and Austin was Doc's choice. That didn't really say anything new, but thanks.
Yeah.
Tony brings up the U.S. title match and how Rude will have to defend that title in addition to challenging for the NWA World title. Watts says Rude and Paulie's attorneys got involved, and there was a judge threatening an injunction, so WCW has ruled that Rude can have a designated surrogate to wrestle Koloff for the U.S. title, Big Van Vader. Watts says, however, that it's still one fall, no disqualification, Medusa is barred, and if Koloff beats Vader, Rude loses the title. Well, that was a weird mix of saying things that hadn't been revealed like they were already known, and just repeating things that were already known without adding anything new.
Yeah.
I do like the official trappings of all of this, but they definitely could have polished up the storytelling a bit.
Yeah. One thing I noticed in the first part, Teddy Long, is it's clear that none of the people in the back, except maybe obviously the guy that speaks at the end, can understand what he's saying at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not being judgmental, because if that was switched and I was surrounded by Japanese people, I would be the exact same way. I'd be like, yeah, okay, sure.
There's not like reactions
No.
to what he's saying in general. You can tell they've just been told, stare at the camera.
Yes.
Not occasionally.
Yeah, Chono just kind of stares straight ahead and not reacting to anything that's said about it. Even though it's about his title match and like his friend, I would assume, being his ref, and just like, yep, I'm also here.
I do think, like, on a certain level with Chono in particular, it kind of works that it makes him look very stoic and somewhat intimidating, that he's just like staring dead at the camera the entire time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting. You can kind of tell.
Yeah.
Our third match is Nikita Koloff, the Cookie Monster himself, versus Big Van Vader, subbing for ravishing Rick Rude, with Rick Rude and Harley Race briefly, in a no disqualification match for Rude's WCW United States Championship. The referee for this one is Nick Patrick.
Koloff wanted to win the U.S. title, going back to his glory days as a dominant champion. As you might recall, he held the U.S. title for roughly a year, back around 1985-86. He is also the reason why we have the current belt design, because last year when he made his return as a heel, he attacked then-champion Lex Luger and destroyed the belt.
Oh, that was such a great shock attack. I liked that one.
Mm-hmm.
That was at Wrestle War, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Wrestle War 91, I think. Yeah.
That does sound right, yeah. There's also part of a story that gets built up a bit more later. It's established that they built up to this. Paulie dangerously left an open contract for a U.S. title match. I guess not expecting it to be taking place at Halloween Havoc. They do a interview segment with Tony Schiavone on one of the shows about it. And he's very defensive about it because you could tell there's dissension in the ranks because he set up a title match which almost backfired on them. And obviously now they're in a situation where we have to substitute because fictitious lawyers and judges are somehow interfering in a title match on pay-per-view for some reason.
Yeah. That most dangerous of foreign objects, the injunction.
Yes.
That's interesting. Okay, so that makes some of the later events of tonight make a little more sense.
Yeah.
For how that works out. Okay.
It's also mentioned that Dangerously hasn't been around. He hasn't been in CTV for a while, and he gets real defensive about how I'm investing our money overseas and yada yada. So there's more of that buildup going on if you watch the build-up shows, which obviously we don't get any of that on this episode, or this pay-per-view event, but a little more for you there.
Okay. Koloff comes out first in his World Peace jacket with the flags of the United States and Lithuania. I believe he had that at Wrestle War 1992.
Yes.
He slaps hands with the fans to quite big cheers. Rick Rude's theme hits, and mustache-less Rick Rude comes out, wearing a red Simply Ravishing robe, followed by Vader and Harley Race. JR points out senior referee Ole Anderson at ringside, conversing with ring announcer Capetta. Capetta says that special enforcing referee Ole Anderson told him Rude and Race are barred from ringside like Medusa was. Jesse calls it abuse of power on Ole's part, but JR thinks it's a great ruling, and also suggests that Race can't be impartial in the NWA World title match later, as there's clearly collusion between him, his client Vader, and Rick Rude. Jesse asks if he thinks Sasaki will be objective, and JR admits that's a valid point. Jesse says, politics go on all the time. Displeased, Race and Rude retreat. JR says Vader is from the Rocky Mountains, and Jesse corrects that Vader is the Rocky Mountains.
Tap the Rockies.
Koloff stuns Vader with massive punches, but Vader mauls him. JR claims Vader has a Super Bowl ring from when he was with the LA Rams, but Jesse knows the Rams hadn't won the Super Bowl. JR suggests he tell Vader he's a loser. For the record, Vader has an NFC Championship ring, not a Super Bowl ring. He was part of the Rams at Super Bowl 14 in early 1980, but they lost to the Steelers.
Okay, there you go.
Vader lands heavy blows, a body splash, and a clothesline that spins Koloff to the mat, then throws Koloff out. But Koloff comes back while Vader is posing and ultimately knocks him down with a charging crossbody for 2 to big cheers. Koloff tries a chin lock but gets mauled in the corner again, but earns 1 count off a roll-up and 2 off a crossbody. JR notes how unusual this agile offense is from Koloff, and yeah, it's kind of a contrast to the last match where Steamboat was unexpectedly power, that we're getting Koloff unexpectedly speed.
True, yeah.
Koloff fights Vader outside, which proves a bad idea as Vader throws him to the barricades and hits him with a chair. Jesse criticizes a fan for bouncing a beer off Vader's head. And yeah, not only should you never throw things at a performer, but if you do, maybe don't do it to the guy with the size and temperament of a rodeo bull.
Yes, that's fair.
Shockingly, Vader lets him live. Vader counters a sunset flip by sitting on Koloff and continues the beatdown, including a second hard clothesline, brushing off Koloff's blows. Vader chokeslams Koloff and hits the second rope splash for 2, then stops a comeback with a rear chinlock, but Koloff keeps the arm up on the third check. Koloff tries a back suplex but can't get Vader over, and also hits a pretty awkward vertical suplex. And it's likely he was just a little too tired to be trying those on a guy the size of Vader, but he made the latter work.
Mm-hmm.
Koloff builds to a flying shoulder block for 2, then an elbow drop for 2, and clotheslines Vader out and interrupts Patrick's count so he won't win by countout. He wants the title. He goes out, but Vader dodges the sickle against the ring post, and Koloff clotheslines the post. Back in, Vader quickly powerbombs him for the 3 count and the win. Vader celebrates retaining Rhodes' title for him, and Jesse praises the power of friendship. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like this one. It's a true hard-hitting match. I mean, what are you expecting with Vader, let alone anyone else being there? It's nice to see Koloff here, because obviously, due to the nature of how we do these shows, we don't always see him, because he wrestled very specifically for one period of time, then left, came back for a little bit, and then left again.
Yeah.
He's always like a special guest star every time he appears in the series. Like, oh, Koloff's here.
Yeah, and we liked him every time he kind of showed up. Like, even from the beginning, when he was quite early in his career, you could tell he had something.
Yeah.
I think the moment that John nicknamed him the Cookie Monster, I think he became a really endearing figure to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I look back at his Starrcade match with an 87, where they unified the UWF title and the NWA version of the TV title. I remember that one being really good as well.
Yeah, I think he's had some really good matches over the years and just a good, high-spirited performance generally. So,
yeah,
it was really good to see him back.
Absolutely, yeah. As I mentioned, it is interesting to have these two contrasting matches where someone goes outside their normal style. Because obviously, just about anybody, other than maybe like if you're Andre the Giant or like King Kong Bundy, you're going to be the underdog fighting Vader. It's just how it works.
Yes.
That or Galactus, I guess, maybe. Gotta set the proper scale.
I don't know. I'd give Vader pretty even odds against Galactus.
I would as well, yes. I do like, though, as powerful as Vader is in throwing, knocking Koloff around, that it's not fully one-sided. Like, I read someone talking about this match, they called it a squash. I'm like, what match are you watching?
I saw the same thing. It's like, what did you see?
Yeah.
Koloff gets plenty of pin attempts on Vader and gets a huge reaction from the crowd and is on offense for a generous portion of this match.
Yeah, whoever wrote that really did not watch the match.
No.
They just like fell asleep and woke up at the finish. Oh, well, he beat up with the powerbomb. Must have beat up the whole time.
Yeah.
As I'll get into a little bit later, Vader might have been a bit too stiff at times here, but otherwise, it's a very enjoyable match. I like that Koloff rises to the occasion, trying different stuff and trying his approach of running and diving at him more. You really got to do that to fight someone the size of Vader.
Yeah, this was a good, strong, big man match with some quite good storytelling nuances. There's a few awkward moments in the middle where Koloff doesn't quite seem to manage a power move that he's trying on Vader, but other than that, he looked good against Vader, and both guys worked hard to get the crowd into this. The crowd seemed to really like both of them, cheering Vader at times, but never at Koloff's expense.
True, yeah.
Koloff did well with his comebacks, especially, building to them very well, and I like that Vader would repeatedly spot one of those coming and go after Koloff quickly or grab a hold to stop the buildup.
Mm-hmm.
They played well with the idea that like Koloff was very visible when he was kind of like getting charged up, and Vader would spot that and immediately do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Koloff got to look good and get a lot of offense in this, and it felt as even as Vader matches get, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good match, despite having what, as you referenced, Al, and I imagine you'll get into in a moment, are some fairly unfortunate consequences.
I wish there was a moonsault, but other than that, that's any Vader match doesn't have the moonsault. I'm just a little disappointed, no matter how good the actual match may be.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he's defending for Rick Rude, and Rick Rude doesn't do moonsaults, so he was like, I can't show him up.
That's fair, yeah. Unfortunately, Koloff would get injured in this match. It is the second clothesline you mentioned, I believe, is Satori.
I thought would probably be the one. That one looks like it hits a little hindsight, too.
Yeah, he ended up herniating a disc in his neck, unfortunately. Koloff would wrestle a handful of house show matches. Unfortunately, they'd also be against Vader, which didn't help things, I'm sure.
That's not going to help you, yeah.
Yeah, like, can I work with, like, I don't know, Pillman? Maybe get me relax a little bit more?
Can I work with a soft block of cheese?
That'd be my ideal opponent, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so this would be his last match, unfortunately, to date.
Aw.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I mean, obviously, it's a shame always when something like that happens, regardless of whether you were planning on going on or not. But It's a shame, especially in this case, because it really feels like Koloff is still beloved by the crowd and could come off of this into a longer run.
Absolutely, yeah.
It'd be interesting, like, one of those many what ifs that you kind of get into in wrestling. Like, imagine Koloff around when like the NWO era starts up or something like that.
Yeah.
If he stayed in WCW and was able to keep things going, there's things that he could have done that would be quite interesting to see.
I could definitely picture that now you mention that, yeah. As for Vader, he would be a very busy man in the next couple months. He would take part in the famous King of Cable tournament, which would take place across the shows, and I believe on one of the Clash of Champions. The idea being that they were celebrating 20 years of wrestling on TBS. And obviously not WCW specifically, because it was Georgia Championship Wrestling, some other companies. But they're the ones on there now, so you get to take all the credit for it. He would also take part in Jesse Ventura's less famous arm wrestling tournament. If anyone would not be betting against in an arm wrestling tournament, Vader would be pretty near the top of the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, him and Scott Norton would be a terrifying sight.
Oh my gosh. Like the table would explode if they fought each other in one of those.
We need to double reinforce the table. Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And worth noting with this whole storyline of Vader defending the US title as a proxy for Rude, he would unfortunately, that being Rude, would be injured in real life and thus stripped of the title eventually right around the time of Starrcade, leading to his famous promo about doctors.
Stabbed in the back by a neurosurgeon.
Exactly, yes.
Oh.
Yeah. There's just a weird irony to the fact that he has a guy defending his title for him, and before the pay-per-view, he is actually injured legitimately and can't defend the title.
Yeah, that is odd. Oh man, just you mentioning that King of Cable match gave me warm feelings. That was such a good match between him and Sting at that Starrcade. That's one of the best things about Starrcade 92 is just that.
Agreed. Yeah.
That insanely good match.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Starrcade, we get a Starrcade ad. Quite similar to last year, since of course we're doing Battle Bowl again. They use the same falling cards gimmick, but they don't bother with the glass bowl this time. It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure some of the clips actually are from Starrcade 1991. And if so, boy, did they work hard to choose only clips that made that show look actually exciting and interesting instead of, like Starrcade 1991.
No clips of Arachne Man, sadly.
We cut to JR and Jesse, and JR asks Jesse how the change from Gordy to Austin is going to affect Windham and Rhodes, who won't have prepared for Austin. Jesse says he doesn't think they were preparing anyway, as they weren't getting along. JR throws backstage to Teddy Long, who is with Dr. Death Steve Williams and Stunning Steve Williams, or Austin.
Yeah.
In a quite random interview set with a big Halloween Havoc banner behind some of those dead plants they drag out for most of these shows' interview sets. It looks less like an intentional set this time and more like they forgot to clean up some garbage when setting up.
Yeah, I can see that.
Dr. Death's cool white and red with flames hooded robe makes up for it, though.
Mm-hmm.
Austin has moved on from the Saved by the Bell tights to a purple and black set.
In just a few minutes, these two gentlemen will be facing Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes for a rematch for the unified WCW World Tag Team titles. And Dr. Death, there's one thing that concerns me. Do you feel as confident with Stunning Steve Austin being your partner tonight as you would be if Terry Bam Bam Gordy was here?
Ha 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 ha, Mr. Long, trick or treat! The treat is Steve Austin is my new partner. The trick is, Daddy, you two men have to face us to beat us. Steve Austin, how do you feel about all of it?
The original game plan goes right out the window, boys. We'll see you in a few seconds.
We'll certainly find out. Let's go to the ring.
Thanks for the name drop, Teddy.
Yeah.
Short promo here, though to be fair, neither guy probably had a lot of time to figure out what the story was going to be, as this is, by my understanding, a very, very last-minute thing. Like, literally day of the show last minute.
Yes, I'll get into that, believe me.
Given that, it's amazing how composed both look, and how they managed to put together at least a simple, quick promo just based on the concept of, Gordy is Austin, now deal with it. Also, take a shot for yet another trick-or-treat promo on a Halloween Havoc show. That's about as big a tradition as faces getting booed against Freebirds.
Pretty much, yeah.
Speaking of, Terry Gordy used to be a Freebird.
Yes.
I wonder if Dustin Rhodes would have somehow gotten booed if he'd attended.
Possibly. Is it me, or did you get a lot of Terry Funk from Steve Williams in that promo?
Yes, that opening laugh, especially.
Yeah. Is it the sort of flow and cadence of how he talks, that sort of sarcastic tone, really, in all the best ways, sound like a Terry Funk promo to me.
I was trying to think thank you for that. I was trying to think who that reminded me of, because that was like, That sounds so familiar, and I don't think it's reminding me of an earlier Steve Williams promo.
No.
So that's great. That's very much a Terry Funk thing, yeah.
Absolutely. I also like hearing just a hint of this Stone Cold Steve Austin swagger with the way Austin does his short promo as well.
Yes.
If you heard that and then heard like a 1997-98 Stone Cold promo, you would. That's pretty close.
Yeah, if he ended that line with "because Stone Cold said so,"
yeah,
it would not be out of place at all.
Yeah, exactly.
We actually go back to JR and Jesse at ringside rather than the ring, technically. JR builds up the problems Windham and Rhodes have had, and Jesse asks how they can be champs in the ring when they don't get along outside. JR throws to Missy Hyatt with Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham in front of a blue curtain. Rhodes has his great shiny jacket now. Rhodes looks serious. Windham makes quite weird faces and seems distracted by something above him off camera briefly. Not sure what was going on there. He straightens up after a minute.
Thanks, Jim. And the big question is, can you two men put your differences aside to prepare for a team you didn't expect?
You know, first of all, the first order of business is to lay all rumors aside, Missy. Now, Dustin and I have no problems. And the second order of business is that Steve Austin is probably one of the greatest competitors in the sport. And I'll guarantee you, Steve Williams couldn't have picked a better partner.
Well, I guess all the talking's over. Now, let's go down to the ring for the match.
Almost, Missy.
So close.
Weird that Dustin didn't get to talk here. He does briefly kind of look over after Windham is done as Missy's wrapping up, but it doesn't seem like he's miffed or anything, so I don't think that he planned to.
I think they're sort of playing into the story with them as well a little bit here.
That's fair. Kind of makes Windham look a little bit more arrogant by doing all the talking, maybe.
Yeah. I watched a handful of them doing the sort of group promos as part of the build-up, and there's definitely a lot of Windham doing the talking, and I think you must get the idea that Rhodes is used to him doing that, and he's just kind of like, yep, that's how this works.
He's kind of got the Michael Hayes in the background of the one Jimmy Garvin promo.
Yes.
Energy going on there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anyway, this is another short promo, but it serves to very nicely cover what they need to cover, that Windham and Rhodes are claiming to have worked out their problems, or indeed not to have any, and their reaction to Austin, which was a quite interesting one. I don't know if it's because he's the guy on this team edging towards a heel turn, or just because Windham knows if you build up your opponent, you look better, but I really like that his reaction to the partner switch was to compliment Dr. Death on his choice. It's kind of an unexpected and cool reaction to a short notice event.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I could definitely see the whole, you maybe had a shot with Gordy's there, but now you have no shot because, you have Austin as a new partner. That angle would make sense. This definitely does feel a little different.
Yeah, it was an interesting take. Okay, the point where Windham said, putting the rumors to bed, there's no problems between us, or however he actually put it. Was it just me, or did you also immediately flash to Shawn Michaels super kicking Marty Jannetty?
Yeah.
It's not quite word for word, but it's very close to that line.
Yeah. And actually, we are very close together timeline-wise, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
I think 92 is when we first get heel Shawn Michaels, so it might be within a few months of each other, actually. I'll look that up later.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So our fourth match is Dr. Death Steve Williams and Stunning Steve Austin versus the Natural Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham for Rhodes and Windham's unified NWA World Tag Team Championship and WCW World Tag Team Championship. The referee for this one is Randy Anderson.
So this is a match whose build-up is genuinely confusing thanks to the combination of injuries and tape delay, as well as something else I'll cover a bit later. Around early September, we did a match between the Steiners, the former champions, against Gordon and Williams. The show seems to end with them actually losing the titles to the Steiners, but then it gets a return to the next show. It's not like a true Dusty finish where they do it right away. Like the show just ends, we have new champions, then the next show they go, oh, by the way, no, you don't have new champions. That is just the start of the confusion, however. So, on the October 3rd episode of WCW Saturday Night, which was taped in late September, a pre-recorded hype video was played early on the show, hyping Halloween Havoc. And it mentions a match between the Steiner brothers and the new tag team champions, Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes. That match happened later in the show. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So they spoil their own title change in their promo package on a pre-tape show.
So to be clear, they ran a promo package that built up Steiners are going to face Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham. But then Rhodes and Windham actually win the titles from the current champions later in the show.
Correct.
Oh my gosh. WCW. Never change.
Again, this is all pre-taped, so you have full control with the order this whole thing airs. You could have aired that match sooner, aired that match the week before, and then run this promo. But no.
Someone was just not paying attention.
Further complicating matter would be an injury to Rick Steiner that would actually happen around the time that they taped the actual match that then ran October 3rd. So they're taken out away as challenger for the tag titles, and that's how we get Windham and Rhodes as the replacement challengers. So the match that we get on October 3rd, the Steiners were supposed to be in that match, but Rick Steiner's injured in actual real time before that match could take place.
Gotcha.
So they were a substitute challenger for the tag titles.
Okay.
So in spite of the fact they knew Rick Steiner was injured and couldn't wrestle, which is why Windham and Rhodes were put in the tag title match, they then advertised the Steiners challenging for the tag titles. I guess they thought Rick would be better, and they didn't check with anybody because he was not.
Wow.
So that's how we eventually get to this match. Or actually, to be more specific, this is how we get to Terry Gordy and Dr. Steve Williams in a rematch for their own tag titles. However, as the day of the match approached, there was some dissension between Terry Gordy and people at WCW. The point of dissension seems to be that they wanted Gordy and Williams to work some New Japan shows. However, Gordy and Williams are very loyal All Japan Pro Wrestling guys. They were very loyal to Giant Baba, who was still running the company and was like the face of it. So basically, they're asking them, "Hey, can you work for the bitter rivals of your friend and longtime employer?" And shockingly, he said no.
Yeah,
tensions just build and build. I imagine losing the tag titles probably didn't help him, didn't make him feel any better either. Wouldn't make me feel better. So that leads to the day of the show. He just no-shows and tells them he's not going to work it.
Oh my gosh.
So let's figure this out quickly, boys.
Yeah, I knew it was day of the show. I could never quite tell if by no-show they meant the show is starting and he hasn't shown up yet, or if he actually does still like contact them before it and say, "Hey, I'm not going to show up." But in either case, it's not a lot of time.
Yeah, I couldn't find an exact answer whether he did that or, he could have easily just told Dr. Steve Williams he wasn't going to show up, and then Williams tells them. Hell, it's 1992. He probably sent a fax. For Bill Watson sitting down at his desk. "Oh, my pager's going off. What's this now?" All right, so that's enough 90s tech references.
Yeah. Send a singing telegram.
Oh, yeah.
Put your heart into it.
Yeah, so we went from the Steiners versus Gordon Williams to Williams and Steve Austin, or also Williams, as mentioned. I get to Windham and Rhodes in the course of about a month.
Oh my gosh. That is wild. Okay, so just, to make sure that I've got this straight in my head again. Gordy and Williams are originally tag champs.
Yes.
They're gonna face the Steiners.
Yes.
But the Steiners get injured.
Yes.
So then there's an ad on the show for the Steiners versus Windham and Rhodes prior to Windham and Rhodes winning the title off of Williams and Gordy.
Yes.
And even though WCW knows that one of the Steiners is injured and won't be able to compete at the future show.
Mm-hmm.
So that gets you to Gordy and Williams ending up challenging the people that beat them for the title.
Yes.
And then Gordy no-shows, and so we get Austin slotted in.
Correct, yes.
That is the most WCW of WCWing that I can think of.
Oh, and just throwing a added bonus to that. Yeah, I mentioned the Scott Steiner heel turn. That's part of how that came about. I think Bill Watts really saw them both as single stars. Specifically, he saw Scott more as single star, which is funny because obviously as we know, Rick started first.
Yeah, I think it's like both of them don't really want to do that at this point.
Correct, yes, yeah. Yeah, so in the brief period where Rick's injured, he throws a TV title at Scott Steiner as your heel and a singles wrestler, and at least him leading the company post-Starrcade. Because I think I might have mentioned he's not on the show anyways. Again, it's just fascinating to see them doing heel Scott Steiner as champion in 1992, when that's something we're used to seeing like 1997 WCW, 98 WCW.
Yeah.
Obviously through 2000 WCW.
It took him a long time to actually be okay with that idea.
Exactly, yes. That was a lot of complicated build-up to a tag team match.
Yes. Austin and Williams seem quite comfortable and confident as they come out, and Williams even gives Austin a friendly pat on the shoulder. Maybe they bonded over shared Williamsness.
Yeah, sure.
Rhodes and Windham come out to what will eventually be Windham's solo theme. Windham's jacket is less shiny than Rhodes, but it's a good red, black, and tan color combo. As we get ready to start, Jesse asks whether the edge is with Williams and Austin due to the surprise of Austin replacing Gordy, or with Windham and Rhodes due to Williams and Austin's inexperience as a team. JR says, Randy, don't call me Pee Wee Anderson is the ref, and Jesse asks why not. JR ignores the question entirely.
Yes, he does.
Rhodes and Williams start. Rhodes can't knock Williams down with the shoulder blocks, but asks for one more, and this time, Williams leapfrogs him and clotheslines him down. Careful, Williams. Barry Windham is in this match. You don't want a repeat of Starrcade 1987.
Ooh, no, you do not.
Williams hits a few three-point stance charges, but Rhodes counters the third with a massive clothesline that flattens him, and works the arm with a wrist lock and an armbar. Jesse, meanwhile, taunts JR about Oklahoma losing to Kansas. Rhodes and Windham trade off working Williams' arm with strikes and varied holds. Williams fights back, pulling the hair when necessary, but Jesse notes that he's not attempting to tag Austin and wonders if he's not comfortable with his new partner. Williams reverses holds on Rhodes, and Rhodes, unable to counter a wrist lock, charges the ropes, leaps over, and snaps Williams' arm over them. A Rhodes dropkick sends Williams to his corner, and he finally tags Austin. JR points out that Austin and Rhodes know each other well, but Rhodes lets Windham go first. Austin gets some early offense thanks to an eye poke, but Windham and Rhodes pinball him around with punches as Jesse criticizes Windham's take fist, which JR says is from a lingering injury. Is that from last year's door slam?
Yes, it is.
Dang, that is some long-term effect.
Mm-hmm.
Windham plays a quite subtle heel in this, like faking Austin out on a test of strength. He doesn't go too overt with it, but you can tell he's kind of like playing that edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rhodes takes over, and Austin repeatedly gets two on rolling him over on a side headlock, and wins the sort of rapid series of counters that would be hard if you had more than one day to prep. The crowd seems to be treating both teams as faces right now, cheering both. Rhodes and Windham earn 2 counts with a Rhodes elbow, Rhodes flying lariat, Windham flying lariat, and Windham beautiful vertical suplex.
Mm-hmm.
The form on that is amazing. Austin breaks the eyes and tags Williams, and Windham holds his own until Williams ducks a flying lariat, and Windham bounces and falls out under the ropes in a quite Dustin Rhodes style. You can tell they've been tagging.
Yeah, he didn't get the distance that Rhodes does, but that's a hard thing to do for anybody.
Yeah, but he at least gets the land bounce fallout.
He does, yes.
Williams drop kicks him back down when he tries to get in, and Windham grabs the ring apron on the way down, presumably not wanting to take a second hard fall on the concrete in under 10 seconds.
Fair enough.
Williams and Austin trade off wearing Windham down, earning 2 counts with an Austin second rope elbow drop, Austin suplex, Williams crossbody, Austin leverage off a hammerlock with the tights, and Williams power slam. Windham stuns Williams with a drawbreaker, and we get a deeply unpleasant shot of Williams spewing out snot.
Yeah.
All the things that WCW misses with their camera work, and they have to catch that perfectly. Williams tags Austin, but Windham fights out of a superplex attempt and hits a top rope diving lariat for 2. Austin goes for a clothesline and both go down, and Windham goes for Rhodes, tagging him even as he collapses from Austin grabbing his leg. Windham is amazing at tags like that.
He is, yeah.
I think part of it is he's so tall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's able to know for sure he's going to have the distance.
Yeah.
Rhodes runs wild on Austin and Williams with punches and elbows and hits the bulldog on Austin for 2, as Williams saves. Windham fights Williams, but Anderson sends him out, and while he's doing that, Rhodes leapfrogs Austin, but eats a massive Williams clothesline, earning 2 for Austin. Austin and Williams trade off beating Rhodes up, including a Williams Boston Crab, an Austin knee strike for 2, and a neat elevated back hold by Austin that's kind of a one-shoulder version of the torture rack.
Yeah. See that.
Windham hits Austin to free Rhodes, who trades rapid pin attempts for 2 counts with Austin as 10 minutes remain. JR and Jesse discuss the change in the match. Now Williams and Austin are tagging more frequently and their teamwork has improved. Rhodes fires up and lands several strikes going for the bionic elbow, but Austin decks him mid-wind-up to mixed cheers and boos for 2.
Mm-hmm.
He's caught grabbing the ropes there. More 2 counts off a Williams snap suplex, Rhodes inside cradle, Williams double armbar suplex, and Williams belly-to-belly suplex. 5 minutes left, and Williams grabs a sleeper, but Rhodes keeps the arm up on the 3rd check. Jesse jokes that Rhodes, as a Texan, doesn't need that much blood flow to the brain.
Aw.
Austin and Williams continue the beating and keep Rhodes away from Windham, but Jesse notes that Rhodes knows that time is short, and so he just has to hold on. Rhodes manages a tag, but Anderson had to run over to stop Williams from getting in, so he misses it and tries to get Windham to leave. Behind his back, Williams and Austin throw Rhodes over the top rope. Windham disposes of Williams and slams Austin, but he hits Anderson in the process, sending him spilling out of the ring on top of Rhodes, who by now has to be wondering why everyone else is getting to do his gimmick of wildly falling out of the ring. Windham rolls Austin up as Nick Patrick runs down to check on Anderson, but Williams clotheslines Windham to reverse the pin, and Patrick counts 3. Austin wins! Or not, as Anderson quickly signals the match is not over, as Windham was not the legal man. Which is correct, but only because Anderson missed the tag that would have made him the legal man earlier.
No, there you go.
It's hilarious that a correct call is correct only because of an earlier error.
Yeah, that's true.
Rhodes charges in and rolls up a celebrating Austin for 2, then rapidly earns several more 2 counts with strikes, a flying lariat, a strike combo, and a reversal of a tombstone piledriver into his own until time runs out. It's a time limit draw, so Rhodes and Windham retain. Windham checks on an exhausted Rhodes. The crowd boos the time limit, but cheers Windham and Rhodes retaining the title. JR says you have to make the right call, and Anderson made the right call. Which is true, though it's the right call, only because he made the wrong call when he missed Windham's tag. Jesse says Patrick's call should have stood. Thoughts on this one?
I thought I liked this match pretty well. I thought it was a good, strong back-and-forth match. Credit where credit's due, they put together at least one quarter of a match they couldn't have known until, again, the day of or the day before.
Yeah.
I think they might have suspected he wasn't going to show up, but that's still not a lot of time to put together a match.
Yeah.
Especially because Austin has done tag matches, obviously. We saw him circa 91, and he was part of Dangerous Alliance. That was never really his forte. Obviously, it would become his forte for quite a while after this. But it's definitely a good pick here because you have someone who is really used to working with Dustin Rhodes.
Yes.
He's not used to tagging match against Dustin Rhodes. If they can just work a singles match in the middle of his tag match, it'd be okay.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, Austin is possibly the best possible person they could have picked for this match.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, he has such experience with Dustin Rhodes. They have had a long-running feud even at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know his experience with Barry Windham necessarily, but with Rhodes, they can probably put something together in their sleep between the two of them.
Yeah. I was worried about this one reading the results before seeing it, because I know we were split a bit on the Gordon Williams versus Steiner's match, where they wrestled to a 30-minute draw. It's the same show where you have the Iron Man match with Ricky Steamboat and Rick Rude, which is so good, going to 30 minutes by design, and then you have a second match also going 30 minutes, but not by design. Weird booking choice.
Mm-hmm.
My issue with that match was, and obviously we don't disagree on this, but I felt they worked that match based on the idea that we're going to work 30 minutes, so let's work these long holds, let's work these sort of positions. This match, the whole time it felt like both teams are constantly trying to get a pinfall and win the match. They're not working like they know they have to go 30 minutes with no finish. They're working like this match can at any point, so let's, in character, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Constant near falls, striking, going for pins, everything.
Yeah.
So while the other match isn't bad, this is what I was hoping that match would be like as far as the internal pacing, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. Which is like, it's especially impressive for this match, right? Because again, this match above any match would probably have an excuse for being like, hey, let's just do a bunch of long holds and get to that time limit.
Yeah, exactly.
But they somehow managed to come up with a 30-minute time limit draw match that feels like they're going at it constantly when they had, as you said, like about 1 day to prepare at least a quarter of the match.
Yeah, exactly.
Just incredible to think of that.
There's also a couple of nice touches here. Again, we had a Windham and Rhodes versus Gordon Williams match. There's some nice callbacks and variations from that match, which I watched on WCW Saturday Night. So, like, for instance, the way Windham and Rhodes won the tag titles is there was a big chaos in the middle of the ring. While it's happening, Rhodes hits a bulldog on Gordy while he's not legal man and then rolls out with Williams, and thus Windham then pins Gordy. So that's why the spot where Rhodes hits the bulldog on Austin and then it's broken up by Williams is a callback to that spot.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's a good, like, I'm watching for that.
Exactly, yeah. Something like that is a nice thing to see, once again, with a match that they had so much trouble getting to. My only issue with this match is just how complicated they made the ending of it. I understand, again, we talked about how convoluted the booking was to get here, and maybe they generally were not sure where they wanted to go. Do you want to throw the titles on to, Austin and Williams, see what happens? Or do you just want to stick with the champions? But they have a false finish, and then they work to a time limit draw. It's a lot of things going on here. 2 refs. It doesn't fully ruin the ending because it's still a really good match, but it messes with the crowd a bit because they get a false finish, and then match restarts. You think, okay, now we're going to get a real finish, but then they work that false finish, fake out, and restart to a non-finish.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a little complicated.
I think the thing that gets me about it that I was like, wait a second, when we were watching on the show, was that while the referees are arguing, the on-screen timer is still counting down. I'm like, no. You should pause this until they figure out if the match can be on.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah. But I agree with you on the ending being a bit confusingly booked. I can see it as interesting in one respect that kind of gives you a trial run of, hey, how notable can we make Austin?
Yeah, sure.
He gets to have a pinfall win effectively on one of the 2 tag champs. I can kind of see it as like maybe they're thinking of it as an experiment. Well, since we have this situation, and admittedly, this is theorizing based on like the idea that that wasn't going to be a spot when it was Williams and Gordy. But
sure,
I could see that being an interesting trial run of like, hey, if we put Austin in the tag scene, will it work?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I generally agree on the ending that they could have made that a little less complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, this was a tremendous match for me.
Yeah.
Windham, Rhodes, Austin, and Williams put on a great show with a terrific storyline of Windham and Rhodes having the early advantage until Austin and Williams figured out how to work together and get some double teams and quick tags going, making great use of the storyline that they were basically forced into.
Yeah.
Austin was a great pick to bring in for this, as Rhodes in particular is very familiar with working with him, so they could get something together without a problem. But I'm still really impressed with how smoothly this all works. If they hadn't mentioned Gordy originally being planned for this match on the show, I don't think I would have spotted it.
Yeah.
As this entirely feels like it was originally meant to have Austin in there. Credit to all 4 guys for that, and let's just appreciate, again, the scale of this accomplishment. This is not just any tag match. It's a 30-minute time limit draw with fast action the whole way through, genuine plot and characterization, and not 1 but 2 face and peril sequences, and a quite complicated ending, possibly too complicated. Basically none of which would be easy when one of the guys involved in the match was not scheduled to be involved in the match until like that day.
Exactly, yes.
Lots of great little nuances here, from Rhodes and Williams' football face-off early on, to Windham's little hints of heelishness, to the little ways that Austin and Williams cut off the ring and kept control, to that bit where Austin uses the delay for the bionic elbow showmanship to nail Dustin, to one of the smoothest ref bumps off an accidental collision that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The only complaint is that this is a time limit draw, really, and that's minor here, as they even fight hard all the way to the end, making Rhodes, who could just stall for the time limit, but keeps going for pins, look like one heck of a fighting champion in those final moments. It's a great match, even without considering that it wasn't the match that was planned. With that in consideration, it's incredible.
That's fair, yeah. I can see that. Well, I guess you still called it successful, even though how complicated the ending was. Duo of Windham and Rhodes would lose the tag titles at the next show, which is the Clash of Champions. I believe it is Clash of Champions 20. Might be 21, perhaps. I have read so many times in my notes I lost track which number I'm on.
I get the feeling, yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, yeah, they would lose them to the, I guess, new tag team of Shane Douglas and Ricky Steamboat.
Nice.
We are 2 for 2, by the way, in years of Ricky Steamboat as a surprise tag partner, because last year he returned to the company and won the tag titles.
That's funny.
So he's got a history with this. As part of the story of that match, there'd be a bit where Ricky Steamboat was injured and Dustin didn't go out and attack him more on the floor, throw him in the barricade. So when they lost the titles, Windham took that as a sign of weakness, and that's why they lost the titles unless he attacks Dustin Rhodes. So that team is over with.
Saw that one coming.
Yeah.
That makes more sense, though, because I was at first like, that's odd that they lose the title to another face team, but then Windham is no longer a face at that point, so he's kind of playing heel for the match, I imagine.
Yes, exactly. A rematch for the tag titles would occur with a slight wrinkle. It is the team of Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas as champions against the team of Barry Windham and Brian Pillman.
Okay, cool.
Heels aligned together to win the titles.
So Windham works with Pillman as a replacement for his partner after facing off against a team that involves Austin as a replacement for a partner.
Correct.
So the Hollywood Blondes are your replacement tag guys.
That's true, yeah. That's interesting how that works out, isn't it?
Yeah. JR throws to Tony, who is with Vader, Harley Race, and Paul E. Dangerously. I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack from my usual with this promo segment because it goes pretty far with its presentation. And I do think that though it's clearly in character on all parts and clearly supposed to make you hate Paul, it could make some listeners uncomfortable to actually hear.
That's fair, yeah.
Obviously, it's available out on the actual show on Peacock, but I'll just summarize here. Tony says that Rick Rude has retained his title thanks to Vader. Paul brags that it was all his idea and he paid half the winner's purse to Race, half the winner's purse to Vader. It's unclear if he means one half of that went to the two of them or if he's given up the entire purse, half to each.
Yeah.
Paul says he's the reason for Rude's success. But Medusa shows up, shoves him out of the way, and thanks Race and Vader for their help in helping her and Rude win the heavyweight title. Race looks politely on, and Vader shakes her hand, but Paul says he has had it with her and goes on a very misogynistic rant about how he's smarter, stronger, and superior to her because he's a man and she's a woman, outright saying that makes her subservient and stupid. As Race and Vader look deeply uncomfortable and withdraw behind Tony, who gives the camera a "can you believe this?" kind of look. Medusa gets increasingly upset, looking close to tears, as Paul continues insulting her and calling her something I'm not going to repeat, and fires her. He calls her entire gender stupid again and shoves her, which is when she hits a beautiful and very satisfying roundhouse kick to his head, knocking him flat, then lays in punches and vicious kicks, really going for it. Vader and Harley Race quietly make their exit, leaving her to it. Doug Dellinger, referees, security, and officials separate the two and have to restrain both. As they're dragged away, Paul gets free and grabs a microphone and says he could beat her with one hand tied behind his back and challenges her to come get him, then runs the hell away as she gets free and goes after him. Even without a microphone, you can hear Medusa yelling, "I hate you," at Paul over the roaring crowd.
Yeah.
We cut to Jesse and JR, and Jesse is enthused at the action. JR wonders how Rick Rude is going to react when Medusa isn't there. Jesse wonders if Paul will bring in someone else, but obviously there's not going to be any reconciliation. JR goes over Medusa's intense martial arts training and expertise, but notes that Paul says he can beat her with one hand tied behind his back. Jesse says it's like Paul says, she's a woman. JR notes she's a very tough woman, and we haven't heard the last of this. He says it's time to spin the wheel, and we will make a deal. But first off, Paul and Jesse here are obviously playing misogynistic heel characters, not to the best of my knowledge expressing any of their actual opinions regarding gender. Let's be very clear on that this is an in-character thing.
Correct.
Wrestling is always a kind of dangerous ground for this type of thing because of the blurring of reality and fiction.
Yeah.
But let's just be very clear on that. This is a fully character segment.
Yes.
With that in mind, this segment does exactly what it set out to do, which is make Paul an even more easily hated villain who isn't just greedy but also a misogynist, and then give Medusa an instant breakout hero moment by having her kick him super hard in the head and lay in a massive beatdown. The segment works. It really works for making you want to see Medusa destroy him, and then giving you exactly what you want. At the same time, I'm not quite sure it had to go as far as it did. It's not any worse than you hear in some Hollywood films with similar themes, but honestly, some of those can get a bit tough to watch at times too, and this did get a little tough to watch for me. I wonder if they could have gotten the same level of reaction by just making it a personal problem between Paul and Medusa without active misogyny. But at the same time, I could see them worrying that because they've both been heels, that wouldn't be enough to make it clear which of them the crowd should cheer.
Yeah.
And this segment definitely makes that cheer, as the crowd erupted for Medusa kicking Paul's head into the nosebleed seats.
Yes.
I feel like this probably could have been toned down at least a bit, but I can't deny it was highly effective at immediately starting a heated emotional storyline for Medusa. Also, it's one of the only times in WCW that you'll see Vader and Harley Race slowly back away, like they want no part of something.
Yeah.
Seeing the, wait, what? Look on Vader's face is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And the two just walking off when Paul is getting his butt kicked lets you know which side they think is right in this situation. Paul is such an awful person that even the mega heels aren't willing to side with him. I would have liked if they kept that going with Jesse, if he did the same reaction in that part of the segment, instead of slightly agreeing with Paul because heels stick together. It would have made the Paulie Dangerously character a full pariah, and that'd be kind of interesting.
I can see that for sure, yeah.
Yeah, from my book, effective, but maybe just a bit much.
Yeah. For better or for worse, Paulie Dangerously / Paul Heyman, the idea of here's this line where you don't cross, and let's cross it, and let's get a big reaction. Hope for the best. Hope, we don't lose sponsors or offend people. That's kind of his thing.
That is true. That is true.
Not defending or attacking it. That's just kind of how he works.
And also, to be clear, like from everything I understand, Paul Heyman was a big fan of Medusa and really wanted her to have like a big moment.
Yeah.
And be a big star. So this is his attempt here to be a mega heel for her to kick the butt of, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. My only issue is that this is all building up to a later show's events.
Yes.
It would be nice if there was something else going on between them, because as we see, there's not really any follow-up on this show for what happens, at least involving the two of them specifically. So it's weird, like this big chaotic event happens, and then anyways, let's move on. Oh, no, next show we'll talk about it.
In fact, genuinely, later on this show, it kind of feels like this segment gets almost ignored.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Which is deeply strange.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to the next actual show segment, which will be Sting coming out to spin that wheel and make the deal, WCW built this part up in a very special, very stupid way, right?
They did, yes. The main event, as it were, of the previous Clash of Champions, that's Clash of Champions 20.
Okay.
So I get all right. So yeah, 21 is the next show. I mentioned that, but I wrote them in my notes because we're going to celebrate 20 years of wrestling, and we're going to end the show with this. They've been building up to a match between Sting and Jake Roberts, which we'll get to more for the actual match. However, they decided, let's do a little vignette, a little mini movie. These that we'll see in the future always worked out for them, and definitely weren't being made fun of constantly by people at the time, and then 30 years later by us. We get a long shot of a cliche smoke-filled bar, a door you walk up to, and you have the special knock and a password. They pull the little latch open and look at you. In fact, in the bar, we see Cheatham, long before he learned to make bombs and tried to kill Sting and David Boy, the British Bulldog, on a beach.
Presumably, he found the bomb maker here to learn from, I guess.
Yeah. Also, sort of mudding to your point, this didn't iron that order, but it's just funny how it is for us. Mudding the point of that last segment, the lady going to the bar is also Medusa.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's Medusa.
Wow, I genuinely didn't recognize her.
Yeah, they sort of, I guess for lack of a better word, they 80s her hair up. Like an 80s hair metal kind of groupie thing.
Yeah, yeah.
She knocks the door and she says the spin that will make the deal thing. Apparently, that's why she's there. We also cut in reaction shots to Hannibal Lecter. Because that's the thing that happens in this video as well. Because, 1991 is Silence of the Lambs. 1992, let's just have random guy literally wearing the mask and strapped to a board.
Yeah.
Just looking around, reacting to scenes in this.
It's so strange. The theme of this bar is all over the place.
Yeah. I really hope that Turner and the affiliate companies own the rights to those characters. Otherwise, they really stirred that line between parody.
I mean, this is the same company that did Arachnoman 1 year prior, so.
That is true. I don't think they get away with the whole, we're doing a satire, because they're not doing a funny version of it.
No.
It's not like the famous bit from the Oscars with Billy Crystal being, wheeled out in the thing, open the show, that's the thing of the movie. They're just doing it. We need someone else for this bar. Who's evil? Hannibal Lecter. Yeah, he's here. Sure, why not? All this talk and me to random shots of Jake Roberts sort of looking around at things. You see the wheel. And suddenly the door is kicked open, and apparently the sun exploded behind him because super bright spotlights are run behind Sting as he walks through the door.
He is silhouetted by heavenly light. It's the most blatant. This is the good guy.
Law. Yeah. They couldn't give him a white hat to wear, but this is the best they could do.
Yeah.
He shows up wearing a very orange outfit. He has, I think it's orange and blue face paint and a matching orange jacket. It's funny because it's this is gritty and real, but I'm still going to put on my face paint and wear my matching colors.
This just is how Sting goes to dive bars.
I can't disprove that.
Me neither. I didn't think of this until now, but this is very much like the atmosphere of this scene. When the door is kicked in, you expect Pro Sting to walk in.
Yeah, I can see that.
But you get Surfer Sting.
Yeah, it's very similar to, the famous biker bar scene from Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
Is that kind of sort of CD bar vibe.
Yeah, just to note, so this entire thing is like 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's about 2 full minutes of this random nonsense before Sting shows up, centering on Medusa going around and not actually pulling the lever, but repeatedly acting like she's going to pull the lever to this big wheel.
See, the caressing the little handle, yeah.
And then Cheatham, the evil little person, showing her various bladed weapons for some reason, and Jake, like, expressing an opinion on them.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. They could have done all that they needed to do here in, like, 30 seconds tops.
Yeah. When Jake Roberts is in close-up shot somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's like they just cut in reaction shots of him. Like, yeah, we're just going to film you for 5 minutes, just react, and we'll put it in somewhere later throughout the video.
It's very much the Steven Seagal I'm in shadows shot.
Yeah, very much so.
I love the cheesy reactions when Sting does show up, especially Cheatham's, who clearly reacts like someone pointed a camera at him and told him shocked face on 3 and then started filming at 2.
Yeah. Huh?
Sting, I knew you'd come. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah, I'm here, so what's the deal?
Sting, I'm going to finish what I started in Baltimore. When I get done with you, you'll wish you'd never been born.
You talk too much. Get to the point. What's the deal?
Sting, relax. What's your hurry? I'm going to take my time and enjoy this moment.
Cut the crap. Do I have to come over there and kick your...
Sting, you don't get it, do you, man? You don't have a clue. Look around you. This is my playground. These are my people. I'm smiling, not you. It's come down to this. You see, the deal is on the wheel. At Halloween Havoc, your worst nightmare will come true. 12 of the toughest and most brutal matches in wrestling.
That's right. Brutal.
You see, on the wheel, there's a cage match. There's a barbed wire match. There's a death match. Or there might even be a mystery match. But you see, the deal is, man, you gotta step up and spin that wheel. Once you spin it, where it stops, that's what you and I are gonna do. And what happens? Well, we both go in the ring. One man comes out. The other? Well, no.
You think I'm afraid of some wheel? You think I'm afraid of you?
Step out of the fog, Sting. Clear your head. You're not thinking. I'm the master of all these matches. This is no game for me. This is fun, but it's not a game. We play it on my turf and my terms. So good luck, Sting. You're gonna need it.
So what are you waiting for? Let's do it now.
To be continued.
Oh my gosh. I love it so much.
Halloween Havoc 92.
Al, do you want to tell the people what that last sound effect was?
Sure. Yeah, so we get all this build-up to Sting and Roberts. They finally come face-to-face, and then not in separate shots. They walk up to each other, standing with the wheel in the background. And then we cut to a freeze frame shot of them, where they added in post lasers shooting from their eyes at each other, which causes a big explosion. It's to be continued at Halloween Havoc 92.
Oh my gosh. I love, like, just picturing them coming up with that ending.
Yeah.
How the hell do we end the video, guys? We can't show the wheel stop. We want that for the actual show. Hell, just have lasers shoot out their eyes and cause an explosion. Whatever.
Look, lunch is here. I want to eat it. So what's after doing? Lasers.
Yeah. Lasers. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no video editor, obviously, but the ending seems pretty easy to do, right? So they start the actual wheel spin. They don't show the result, obviously. Have them spin the wheel, walk up to each other, face off. And then just do a slow pan or a quick pan. I would do it. Slow pan to the background of the shot. We see the wheel spinning. You see the matches go by, and then to be continued.
Yeah, just fade out, to be continued. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't need laser eyes. I say this all the time. We don't need laser eyes.
I say this all the time. We do need laser eyes, but
that's true. You do say that.
Yeah, it's also weird. Like, okay, so let's analyze the story of this segment for a moment.
Sure.
So Sting has come in and been like, "Hey, Jake, what's the deal?" And Jake's like, "Hey, spin that wheel." And Sting's like, "Okay, I'll do it." And he goes over and spins the wheel. And apparently that means nothing because he's just going to have to come out on this show and actually spin the wheel.
Yeah.
So why did they have him do it there? Why did they have that as part of the thing? Other than that, they've spent an enormous amount of money on this big, stupid wheel and want to show it spinning more than once.
I think what happened is the explosion from the laser eyes knocked over the wheel.
Gotcha, yeah.
Yeah, there's a really awkward ending where after the explosion clears, they look and go, oh, sorry, wheel's knocked over. Ah, dang it. Well, I can't put it back up now. I guess let's skip it cross country to the next show.
Jake's like, Sting, sorry, we broke it. It's really embarrassing, it's really embarrassing, but I'll get it fixed up. I'll ship it into town for time of the show. It'll be fine.
All right, I'll just see you later, man. Okay? Yeah, we're cool.
Yeah. Maybe for poker next Tuesday?
Oh, yeah, sure. So there's so much stupid and ridiculous in this. But Jake Roberts, to his credit, was, and as far as I know, is a really good promo.
Yeah.
He has the intensity, even if it's weird, like, he tries to work around saying the 2 miniature woman leaves bit, and just goes in. Other man, no. I don't love that livery, but I kind of like it.
One compliment I will give is I love that they cut the music for the no.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a good emphasis moment that I liked. I don't know why our music was random drumming to begin with, but it's cool that like cuts out there.
Yeah, it was weird, like 1930s jungle drum sound effects.
Yes.
It's like Tarzan being chased by natives, for lack of a better word, in one of those bits.
Yeah,
that's how you do those. That's probably stock music number 27 in the Eternal Library, which is why it's there.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. Like, it's standard Jake Roberts quiet intimidation. It's really natural. It's definitely him doing the best he can with a very silly concept.
Yeah.
One thing I really like that he called out on it was him claiming he's the master of every match that's on the wheel, making it clear that this is set up as a gamble, but it's not one Sting can actually win.
Yeah.
So it's very much in the Roberts, I've tilted everything in my favor kind of playbook.
You want to play 21, I play 22.
Yeah, the better version of that, I guess.
Yes. It's definitely a better show than that show.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Oh, and yeah, the crowd.
Yeah.
Why did they react to everything going, ooh, like they're middle schoolers watching an argument in the cafeteria?
Yeah, it's like it's the sitcom audience reaction to news. Yeah.
Yes. It clashes so much with like the atmosphere they're trying to set up and Jake's intimidating tone.
This tattooed lady, this dangerous wheel, cheat him with his eye patch.
Literal Hannibal Lecter.
Literal Hannibal Lecter is there as well, yes. I guess he got caught somewhere in Central America and shipped over here.
Yeah.
And then, ooh.
Oh, Tommy just did a sick burn on Stevie. It's like, okay. Yeah, it's not quite as unhinged as Cheatham literally trying to murder Sting with a bomb on a boat, but
yeah.
But it's pretty stupid. Enjoyably so.
Oh, yeah.
I think I would have been so annoyed at WCW for doing these in the time, but I am so glad that WCW did these incredibly stupid mini movies now.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
They're such a joy to watch.
Yeah.
Speaking of stupid, the actual spin the wheel, make the deal segment. Ring announcer Capetta announces that it's time for the first step leading to the non-sanctioned lights out match later, which is where Al and I got very confused on our first watch as we thought he was declaring the specific match gimmick before it had been spun, which is what Sting's going to be spinning for.
Exactly.
Sting comes out in his tremendous blue and white coat. It's really excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And watches, trying to look intimidated, as WCW's beautifully stupid wheel slowly rises from the stage. It's topped by a skull with eyes that flicker with spooky lighting, then the Halloween Havoc logo, which kind of puts doubt on the whole unsanctioned thing.
Yeah.
And then a wheel shaped like a giant circular saw blade, with the names of matches written on various wedges, and adorned with scythe and axe blades as well, because one giant blade wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Then there's finally a big snake-themed base.
Mm-hmm.
So in storyline, did Jake actually design this thing?
I mean, I would have to think so, yeah.
He did have an unhealthy blade obsession in that mini-movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Predictably, Jesse references Wheel of Fortune inside of 20 seconds of the wheel appearing.
Yeah.
A stagehand has to run out on camera and plug a big lever on the stage into the wheel so that the thing will work.
Yeah.
I can't believe that WCW didn't work out a way to just have that hooked up to begin with.
Yeah.
Or, just fake it.
Yeah, right?
JR says that Sting has been thinking about each of the options on the wheel for many weeks, and Jesse says that won't do him any good because he doesn't know what he'll spin. Well, Jesse, if he had been planning for every possibility, that would do him good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Tony comes out and says they're at the moment they've been waiting for. Sting, it's time to spin the wheel. Make the deal. The camera zooms in on Tony for some reason, and he gives it the look only one who knows he's contractually obligated to participate in absolute BS can give.
Mm-hmm.
And gestures at the wheel like, dummy, that's the whole point of this segment. Don't film me.
Yeah, it's true.
Sting comes over and pulls the lever, and the wheel starts spinning. And keeps spinning. And keeps spinning. Fireworks go off to try to make it seem interesting. Poor Sting has to stand there while the thing slowly comes to a stop. Guys, maybe have him, cut a promo during all the setup and spinning so that it's less boring?
Well, no, the spinning wheel is what they're paying to see, Bob.
Yes, yeah, but you could still have him, talking off camera. The wheel can be the visual.
No, the wheel is more important. I don't know who this Sting guy is, but the wheel is... We spend as much money on this wheel as we paid Sting for this show. So they are equal partners here.
It finally stops on Coal Miner's glove. Sting tries to make it look like he's excited by that, and completely misses Tony asking for a comment and walks off. So Tony just awkwardly says, he's ready. Back to JR and Jesse helpfully explains what a coal miner's glove match is. There's a pole with a glove on the top, and there's hardened steel in the glove, and if you climb and get the glove, you can use it as a weapon. He says one punch will be enough to knock someone out. They'll just have Medusa come out and kick them instead. That'd do it.
Yeah, that's true.
JR notes that there's 2 refs for this next match between Rude and Chono, and notes the presence of senior ref Ole Anderson throwing to Capetta to find out what that was about.
I will say, I was tempted, because I love doing research, I was tempted to try and look up the history of Coal Miner's glove matches, and then I didn't feel like it.
From what I understand, it's a match that Bill Watts was fond of from earlier territory stuff, and he wanted to bring it in.
Gotcha.
WCW somehow managed to make a segment with a giant saw blade wheel of fortune dull.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the amount of money that WCW blew on this segment for basically no emotional impact whatsoever.
Yeah.
They could have had Sting draw a match out of a hat for far less money and probably more interest. But that wouldn't have ripped off Mad Max, and that seems to be WCW's guiding principle for this series.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Mad Max isn't even a Halloween film. They know that, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, also, the film they're ripping off so much...
Beyond Thunderdome.
Yes. It's about 8 years old at this point, if I did my math right. I think it's 84 is that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it still puts it in the nearer tier of wrestling pop culture references, though.
That's true, yes.
By the way, there's a disagreement between WCW performers on whether the wheel was gimmicked to force it to stop. Jake Roberts, on one of his Snake Pit shows, says it wasn't, but on another version of it, he says he was told it wasn't, but seems to imply that he doubted that. Tony, on What Happened When, explicitly says that it was gimmicked and the match type was picked by Watts and Dusty Rhodes, and from the way the wheel ends up stopping, I think it looks pretty gimmicked, personally.
Yeah.
It kind of keeps spinning and then quite suddenly comes to a halt.
It does, yeah. It narrowly misses hitting another match as well.
Yes.
Just goes past it to Coal Miner's glove.
Either way, Jake is pretty clear that he was not enthused by the choice of match and was convinced that he couldn't climb the pole. Jake also said he was not told what type of match he'd be having until the wheel spun it, which would be weird, but is plausible for WCW.
That does track, yes.
It would also explain why Sting just ran off right at the end there, if he had to go and meet Jake to plan right away.
That's true, yeah.
I think it's 1 hour exactly from this segment's ending to their match.
Gotcha.
So not a huge amount of time. And obviously, as proven by Rhodes Windham versus Williams Austin, experienced guys totally can plan out an intricate wrestling match with big spots on quite short notice.
True, yeah.
So they might have figured okay, these guys can probably do it. Or maybe that they'd have a general plan and then work out how to bring in the gimmick to it.
Yeah. I will say, based on things I've read, and I'll go over a bit later, I think Bill Watts was less interested in what Jake Roberts felt.
Yes.
Than other promoters might be. So that's also a factor.
Yeah, that is, I'm sure.
Oh, darn, he's upset. Whoop-de-doo.
Thoughts on the segment, any?
I love the grand entrance. I love the pageantry. I love the stagehand walking into the shot to plug in the lever.
Oh my gosh. They've got all this drama and then just like, oh, it's not plugged in. Quick, get out there.
It's like a show I watch is a great show from the UK called The Goes Wrong Show, where they're doing like serious plays, and as you can guess the title, things constantly go wrong. And a recurring bit they love to do is like a stagehand walks into a shot, or like a wall will fall down and you just caught standing there. So I was kind of giving me flashbacks to the poor stagehand just being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's great.
And we discussed it too. Like, I get the idea that for some reason they had this big entrance where the wheel, where it's raised up to the floor, like it's, the brood coming up. So that's why it's not plugged in. And I get you a stagehand, but couldn't you like dress a stagehand up like a ghoul or something?
Yeah, at least like do a Halloween theme or...
Yeah.
Yeah, or like I said, just make it. Sting pulls the lever and some guy behind it actually turns the wheel on.
Yeah. My other note was, Sting seems as thrilled with the Comar's glove stipulation as we are, simply walking out.
Yeah, he gives one little brief pump of his hands and then he turns and walks the heck off.
Yeah. I did a little research with Sting. About a year earlier, a different series, mind you, Sting did have a Russian chain match against then heel Nikita Koloff. He would have a reaction to that kind of match, but obviously that wouldn't be the one Bill Watts wanted or be a Jake Roberts special. But even commentary could say, hey, we had a Russian chain match with Sting and he lost.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to be worried about what matches come up on here.
Yeah, really, like going off of what Jake said, if Sting was also not told, then everything makes sense what happens at the ending there with him just being like, okay, quick reaction, now I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And being totally in his head and not paying any attention to anything else at that point, like not even noticing Tony come up. So
yeah, exactly. Well, at least the match will be worth it. More on that later.
So our fifth match is Rick Rude with Medusa. Wait, what? Versus Masahiro Chono with Hiro Matsuda for Chono's NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Referees for this one is Harley Race and Kensuke Sasaki.
As mentioned in an early episode, there was a split between the NWA and WCW. This, plus Ric Flair's infamous firing as then world champion, led to the belt basically being a property of New Japan, with matches then being contested against WCW stars, but it's much more of their belt. Like that's why you have Chono as champion, regularly defended on New Japan shows, sometimes with obviously guest people coming in for it. It's weird that this belt that represented the company that JCP, Jim Crockett Promotions, was like the top part of, kind of become the secondary belt to their own belt. Very strange how things go like that.
Yeah, especially like it's the big gold belt, even.
Yes.
They gave the NWA the big gold belt. They didn't keep it.
True, yes, yeah. So the way Chono became champion is he won a special tournament that took place at the annual G1 Climax tournament. That name continues to amuse me. I love that is still being used to this day. It's a very popular tournament, and a lot of people love that, but it's just, that name is so interesting. So normally the G1 Climax tournament is a sort of round-robin event where you invite everyone into Block A and Block B, and then whoever wins each block then fights each other. This time, it was just a standard tournament with all these people in it, so it's not even really sticking to the G1 format anyways, but it is what it is. Chono won the vacant belt in the tournament, which is a star-studded affair, putting names such as Shinya Hashimoto, who we've seen from previous shows, Keiji Muto,
nice,
Steve Austin,
cool,
Arn Anderson,
ooh, nice,
our boy Scott Norton,
nice,
the Barbarian,
okay, yeah,
Bam Bam Bigelow,
yeah,
and Rick Rude.
Nice.
Notably, Rick Rude would be in the finals against Chono and lose to him.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So thus, this is the rematch for the NWA title between these two.
Gotcha. Okay, so it was like, hey, I got to the end of the tournament. You need to face me again.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a good collection of people.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of different styles that they got for it, too. That sounds like a pretty interesting one.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
As we start, Capetta presents some dignitaries at ringside. NWA President Seiji Sakaguchi and Manabu Nakanishi, who represented Japan at the 1992 Olympics in freestyle wrestling and looks tough as nails.
In 1995, he would do a pretty standard thing for New Japan wrestlers, which is they would send him overseas, whether it be Mexico or America or whatnot, work somewhere else, so you can build experience with new people, and you sort of create a character, and you come back and you're changed. He would spend about a year in WCW off and on, where he'd wrestle as Kurosawa, not the director.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for sure he's on Halloween Havoc 1995, at least.
Oh, there we go. So we'll see him later in this series. I know there's some more for sure with him.
Yeah.
In his time in New Japan, he would win multiple tag team championships. He would win the G1 Climax tournament in 1999, which was seen like that was going to be his big year. He's going to rise up the ranks and become a top star, but apparently never really went that way. He was around, but he never became the top guy.
Gotcha.
Well, tellingly, he would get one world title reign, but it'd be 10 years after his big coming out party in 1999. So it says something.
Well, I mean, if you make it there, you make it there.
Yeah.
Capetta mispronounces his name as Wakanishi, by the way.
I noticed that too, yes.
He had actually debuted as a pro wrestler already at this point, just under 2 weeks prior to this.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Capetta introduces the two referees, Kensuke Sasaki, then Harley Race. Sasaki and Race, in referee shirts, Sasaki's plain blue, Race's white and black striped, are wonderfully funny sights.
Mm-hmm.
His two big, beefy dudes.
Yeah.
Rick Rude is out next, still accompanied by Medusa despite the earlier segment.
Do you notice Medusa's full bodysuit she's wearing when she comes out with Rude?
Yeah, it felt very like X-Men or something.
Well, she looks familiar. It's the same outfit she's wearing in the Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal video.
Oh, it is.
It's the exact same outfit. Yeah.
I think she has like a jacket on or something over it at the time.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it's interesting that she comes out with him, and that's the part that I was saying made more sense to me after your explanation of Paulie Dangerously being at fault for Rude having the U.S. title match in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, Rude blames Paul for the earlier situation even happening, and therefore decides to stick with Medusa.
Yeah.
But it is very confusing in the information you have on the show that it's like Rick Rude is with Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman fires Medusa explicitly as Rick Rude's assistant.
Yeah.
Followed by Medusa comes out with Rick Rude as his assistant. And also Medusa appears to have turned face earlier in the show and then just comes out and is acting completely heel again here.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very strange.
Yeah. You also would think all that buildup is leading to Paulie Dangerously coming out at some point. But no.
Yeah. Rude does his usual routine, cutting his music and telling the inner city sweat hogs to shut up while he gives them a look at the next NWA champ. He takes off his robe and swivels his hips, as JR notes that Medusa and Rude are still together, and that raises questions about whether Rude is staying in the Dangerous Alliance. Paul's firing of Medusa may have majorly backfired. Chono is out next, wearing the big gold belt and accompanied by Hiro Matsuda. I believe they use the music they assign him for the New Japan Super Shows.
That sounds right, yeah.
Senior ref Ole Anderson, at the request of Hiro Matsuda, checks both referees for weapons. Then Ole tosses a coin, or more accurately kind of drops it, to determine which referee will be inside the ring and which is outside. Rude wins the toss, so Race is in the ring and Sasaki outside. JR notes that Race, holding up the NWA title, was NWA champ 7 times. Jesse says no one knows that belt better, which is not strictly true, as all of Race's reigns came before the big gold belt was created to represent the championship. So he knows the championship very well, but not the belt.
Also, the guy that knows that belt most is currently wrestling in WWF right now.
This is true.
But they're not going to mention him for obvious reasons.
Yeah. The crowd chants something, but I couldn't pick out what. JR notes that Rude retained the U.S. title thanks to a court injunction and Big Van Vader's powerbomb. Accurate.
Yeah?
Rude jaws at Chono, and JR notes that Chono speaks very little English, but Jesse claims that Rude can speak Japanese like all Minnesotans.
He did not back that up, though.
No, he does not.
Notably.
Both get each other in the corner and break clean, but Rude breaks the eyes and beats Chono up, but Chono counters a headlock with a back suplex and they trade holds, with Chono dominating. The crowd is pretty silent, mostly amusing themselves with woos for some reason.
Yeah.
Rude resorts to more strikes, and earns 2 off an elbow drop and a forearm drop, but Chono escapes a sleeper and works Rude's arm and back with a hammerlock, armbar, and sharp strikes, broken only by a brief retreat by Rude so Medusa can give him a massage. Chono slaps on the Boston Crab, but Rude makes the ropes, so Chono goes back to working the back. Rude stuns him with a headbutt and jawbreaker, and builds to a swinging neckbreaker for 2, then works a chin lock, as JR gives some genuinely great analysis of the pressure and leverage and their fight to manage it. Chono escapes and counters a Rude charge with a drop toe hold and goes for the STF, but Rude covers up and desperately fights to avoid the hold, as you can hear Medusa shriek in warning each time it gets close. JR points out that she has experience in Japan and might know the hold better than anyone in WCW. Chono gives up on it and trades blows with Rude, who rakes the eyes and hits a piledriver for 2. Medusa spitefully pushes Chono's leg off the ropes after the pinfall. She's been arguing with Sasaki all match, but Race warns her for that too. Rude goes back to the chinlock, and Jesse and JR discuss an arm wrestling contest that you mentioned earlier, Al.
Yeah.
That Jesse will be holding on a future show, with Jesse thinking he should have invited JR to compete. They also do a great job of analyzing the pressure and leverage of the hold again. The crowd, meanwhile, is more interested in something happening off camera. Rude tries a dropkick, but Chono kind of half dodges, then goes for the yet-to-be-named Yakuza kick, but Rude dodges and Chono hits Race, earning a rare, really loud reaction from the crowd for this match. Sasaki checks on Race, and Chono shoves Rude to counter a turnbuckle ram and sends him over the ropes to the floor, bowling both refs over. Race actually saw it, Sasaki didn't. Rude awakening, but there's no ref. Race and Sasaki help each other stand, and Rude tries a top rope knee drop, but Chono dodges and swiftly locks on the STF. Sasaki gets in and signals for the bell, giving Chono the victory by submission. I think Rude is supposed to have actually submitted, but it's not super clear.
Yeah.
Sasaki raises Chono's hand to booze, but Race says no because Chono threw Rude over the top rope earlier and is disqualified. He raises Rude's hand to some cheers. Race's ruling stands, and Rude wins by DQ, which means that Chono retains. Capetta tries to give the belt to Race to give to Chono, but Race is busy arguing with Sasaki. Matsuda also gets involved. Race gets heated and punches Sasaki, but Sasaki blocks the second punch and slams Race, then catches a Rude kick and drop kicks him, and clotheslines him over the ropes, then clotheslines and suplexes Race, who rolls out. Sasaki rips off his referee shirt, and holy crap, the crowd got loud for the Sasaki action. Guess they're more of a striking and power crowd than a mat work crowd.
Seems to be, yeah.
Sasaki, standing there with a bare chest but with a bow tie and remnants of his collar, is hilarious. Sasaki and Chono stare down Rude and Race, who retreat. Thoughts on this one?
It's an interesting match because there's matches we talk about where we can go, oh, it's great because of this, or it's really bad because of this. It's one of those matches where they don't really do anything wrong. There's a couple kind of odd bits, like in the dropkick where he sort of misses and sort of doesn't. Maybe it works because Rude's selling the back landing, but still, he seems to actually dropkick the guy. But as a whole, there's no like obvious real major miscues. The problem is just it's so dry. It's so slow, so methodical. It's a thing, like if you were watching legit amateur or even Olympic wrestling, this is what it would, to a certain extent, would be like. It's fighting over holds and these long things. Obviously, there's no ropes in Olympic wrestling, I know. But it's a very old school kind of match, and I think they really misjudged the crowd here. I think, well, there's a lot of problems, but the main problem, I think, is that their understanding and their guess of how the crowd would react is definitely just all wrong. I think their logic was, Rude's a bad guy, but he's also the American here. So the crowd's probably going to cheer him. So let's have Chono control good chunks of the match, like a heel, like a Flair, constantly trying to put someone in a hold and they have to struggle out of it. Rude wrestles a lot like a face, other than his intermittent heelish actions. But they don't really boo Chono here. And they don't really cheer Rude. So it's the worst case scenario here.
Yeah. I kind of feel like the crowd is a little bit confused as to how to treat Rude.
Yeah.
In part because of that earlier segment with Medusa.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I really think they gambled on, they're going to cheer Rude, so let's have him wrestle, to the most part, like a face fighting underneath from a heel. It's also not helped that Chono's offense, while it is solid, is just not that exciting, at least in their interactions. There's moments where, between like the long holds and fighting to him, there's some genuine intrigue in how they interact. This is obviously not the first time they fought each other. I mentioned they fought this title before. So you can't go, oh, well, this is their first match. Maybe they're going to work these things out. This is at the very least the second time they've wrestled. They could have wrestled more on house shows for all I know. So you don't really get by on that. So it's one of the rare cases where both guys wrestle well, but somehow it's bad because just no one seems to really care. And again, dimension is not helped by the fact the crowd, even as little as they were reacting before, outright just turn and look away from the match for what I assume is people fighting or someone being thrown at the arena for doing something. We don't see it because our hard camera shot never tries to follow it. So it's everyone just suddenly turns and looks to like the right, and they're just not paying attention.
Yeah.
So Rude's thought process is, I'm going to just hold this chin lock until they turn back and look at me. But they weren't exactly doing all that much while they were watching, so maybe not a great call.
Mm-hmm.
It's also another match where they just overly complicate the ending, which is a shame. I don't think it's obviously not as good a match as the tag title match, but that also had that issue as well. Even logistically, there's some issues with it. Like, I honestly didn't notice that Race spotted the toss over the top rope first time. And when rewatching it with that knowledge, it hints upon the fact that he's looking past Kensuke Sasaki, which is a big ask because he's a big dude.
This is fair.
He's like looking past his shoulder and he goes, oh, I see exactly what happened here.
Mm-hmm.
So it might have worked if the idea is he's going to try to use that to give the title to Rude, but it's going to make a disqualification.
Yeah. He can't make Rude win the title off of that, so it's kind of weird that he does it. Yeah.
Yes. Also worth noting, we talked about before how the rules of the top rope move changed. Remember what is still illegal? He drops to the head. Rick Rude's master plan is, I'll just move, I know I'll get myself disqualified so I can win the title.
Maybe he figures that Harley Race will not disqualify him for that, but also Kensuke Sasaki is there, who definitely would. So
yeah.
Rick Rude, I guess, not the master strategist he thinks he is.
Yeah, that's fair. In a vacuum, we just watch this match. It's not bad. Like I said, they don't trip over each other. Nothing really bad happens. It's just so dry, and the fact the crowd has no interest just really makes it hard to invest yourself into watching it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So this is another one of those ones where I had a more positive reaction to it on second watch than I did when we initially did our watch.
Sure.
I found it quite interesting to a certain point, though with some notable flaws, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
While there are quite a lot of long holds in this, they're all done with some real intricacy and storytelling to them.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of fighting for leverage, attempts to shift pressure, and a really important mid-match segment about whether Chono can get the STF locked in that it quite effectively builds up how scary that hold is with how desperately Rude fights to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually does have a pretty good story to it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that story is dependent on you picking up lots of little tiny movements and details that are only visible up close.
Mm.
Which is, I think, a major contributing factor in this match, having basically zero crowd reaction for large chunks of it. The crowd just literally can't see the focus of the action.
There's a lot of start-stop as well.
That too, yes.
Early on, yeah.
Also, while the holds are intricate, they are, again, very long. There's a lot of segments of this match that are just one guy keeping a hold on while the other guy does subtle movements that do mean something, but aren't that visually interesting.
Yeah.
I suspect this would have been better if it was a 10-minute match with holds half the length. Still do all the little interesting details, but just less of them.
Yeah.
So 2 other contributing factors. 1, I don't think the crowd has much of a clue who Chono is.
Yeah.
Or how they're supposed to react to him. And 2, like I said, I think they're confused about how to react to Rude and Medusa. Medusa effectively turned face earlier in the night, but here she is managing Rude, who is still acting fairly heelish, but not super heelish. And then they've got Race as referee, but he doesn't do anything remotely shady.
Yeah.
Even his final call is actually correct-ish, just really late.
Yeah.
But Chono's also fighting more like a good guy, just without much in the way of appeals to the crowd. And his ref doesn't do anything shady either. He basically doesn't do anything for the match.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite fair for the crowd to just be confused and unsure who they're supposed to cheer or boo or how to really react, as they're not getting any strong signals.
Mm-hmm.
If I were booking this, and I'm obviously not, but what I think would have helped is for Rude and Race to just go ahead and dial up the villainy and do some bigger, more notable cheating more frequently to give the crowd something to react to.
Yeah.
The other suggestion I would have, move the Medusa and Paul segment to after this match, so she can still get a full heel reaction for this match, and then Rude not winning the title in the end will give that segment an easy, clear reason for Paul and Medusa to start arguing, with him unfairly blaming her, for instance.
I can see that, yeah.
All told, the action for this was fine and an interesting enough watch, but it ends up draining a lot of energy out of the show because it just doesn't work at all with the crowd. It's easy to miss some of the storytelling, the characters feel subdued, and the alignments are a little confusing. So it's not bad, but it's quite underwhelming. which unfortunately is a bit of a thing for Chono in WCW in late 1992. See Starrcade.
I will say I'm glad we did the New Japan Super Show series.
Yes.
Because we got that great match with him and Muto. And honestly, in Luger, his Luger match was good as well.
Yeah, he had 2 good matches on the Super Show series, and it made me see, okay, yeah, no, this guy is genuinely good. For whatever reason, he just doesn't click in the US at this time.
Yeah. We'll see him later in some shows when he's gone full Yakuza with his look.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see some of those and to re-look at those and see how we feel with them.
Does the addition of really strong character segments really help him, or does it overwhelm what he does well in the ring? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see that. Yeah, I remember on the Super Shows, I was so glad when we saw that match with him and Muto, and just oh my gosh, that redeemed this pairing for me because it was so good.
Mm-hmm. I think if you're going to pick a moment to point out the issues this match has, I think the SGF spot is a great example of that. You get what should be really good drama where we've been told as an audience as the SGF is inescapable hold and it's really dangerous. So we get the initial buildup of Chono going for the hold and then Rude counter. But Rude counter isn't to get out of the hold. It's just to cover his head up and lay there. So that's one of those things. It's like a lot in this match. That's a legitimate way to do it.
Yes.
But it's not interesting way to do it.
Yeah, I think that segment, the drama rides on you already knowing how dangerous the STF is.
Yes.
Which they have been telling you a little bit here and there, but, and maybe you can answer this, I don't know, if Chono had matches on WCW TV leading up to this at all?
He didn't have any matches specifically for them because he's working New Japan schedule. But they played video, vignettes of him in matches, presented as Rude and company are doing scouting. They referenced all the footage they had of him and they ran over him.
Right. Okay.
So we as an audience would have seen some of it, but this would still be our first, I believe, experience seeing him wrestle.
Because it feels basically if you understand intrinsically how dangerous that hold is, then you do kind of have a reaction from that spot. But if you are only tangentially aware of Chono, you probably don't really have much of a reaction from it and don't quite understand why Rude is doing what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So while it's good storytelling in the context of the match, it's bad storytelling in the context of the overall presentation.
Exactly. And again, for me, the way he does it is not that exciting to watch. It's perfectly logical and probably what you would do, because he does have your leg. You can't kick him off, but just covering up and sitting there on the ground no, you can't touch me, is not the most exciting thing to watch if you're a wrestling crowd, fortunately.
The part of it that I did like in that, especially, other than I did like just the general idea of what's going on there, but
sure,
I did like that Chono, I believe, starts wrenching really hard on the leg then.
He does, yes.
So basically try to get Rude to have to let go to try and deal with what I'm doing to his leg.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a good example of everything that's right and wrong about the match.
Mm-hmm.
That there's some genuinely good storytelling going on with the intricacies of how they're fighting around this hold. But all of it is such small details that if you're the crowd especially, you probably miss 90% of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate because I like Chono and I like Rude, and this match has some good ideas to it. It just does not come off right, and you can tell why it doesn't come off right.
Mm-hmm.
This is not one of those matches where I'm like, I don't get why the crowd isn't reacting to this. I get why they're not reacting to this.
Yeah.
And I had that same reaction the first time I watched it, so I get it.
It's absolutely a match that does have merit. It's not a bad match at all. It's just everything ultimately works against it and just doesn't work for the crowd, and it makes it hard to watch because of that. As referenced, we would get a return match involving Chono and Kitabudo, who would show up at Starrcade 92 to challenge for the title. Not a fan of that match, unfortunately, for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I remember describing that one at the time as, I should love this match, and I don't.
Yeah.
Because everything about it, much like with this one, everything about it that was technical was brilliant,
mm-hmm.
but something was just not clicking with the emotion of the match.
And as we learned much, much later when we watched the New Japan Super Show, those two can have a great match against each other. So it's definitely not an issue of them. It's just other things happen.
Yep.
And as I mentioned, Rude would unfortunately have to drop out of his U.S. title match, which will also affect his other action on that show, but I'll talk about it a bit more later.
We get the Starrcade ad again. It looks the same as last time. Then cut back to JR and Jesse. Jesse agrees with the decision to disqualify Chono and isn't happy with the, quote, Japanese nationalism that they're getting in Philadelphia. Okay.
What?
JR tells him to calm down because it isn't the UN. Okay.
Sure, yeah.
JR throws to a video of Cactus Jack training Barbarian for his match against Ron Simmons by stacking concrete blocks on his back and then hitting them with a sledgehammer. I guess the idea is he's building up pain tolerance in his back to deal with the power slam.
It is, yeah.
Jesse says it may not be traditional training, but it proves Barbarian is tough. JR says Cactus Jack could be the deciding factor. JR also proves the value of punctuation. I see Nick Patrick in the ring. Our referee, Gary Capetta, is ready. So our sixth match, which technically is our main event, because the following one is non-sanctioned and therefore technically not part of the show, I guess.
Yeah, arguably, yeah.
Not quite sure how I'm going to count that for our wrap-up, but we'll see on that. Is the Barbarian with Cactus Jack versus Ron Simmons with Teddy Long for Simmons' WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Our referee is Gary Capetta, Nick Patrick.
Yeah. That happens. Ron Simmons would make history on August 2nd, defeating Vader for the WCW title. In kayfabe, Sting was injured and couldn't show up for his match, so they held a raffle backstage, and whoever won would get to challenge Vader. See, that meant Ron Simmons.
I like that your reward is fighting Vader.
Yeah. I feel like if you lose a raffle, that's your penance.
Yeah.
It is a very important bit of history we talked about before, that he is the first African-American world champion recognized. There's a whole thing with Brazil winning the title but not really counting, and then some other stuff like that. So this is officially the historic part of it.
It's a legit huge moment, yeah.
As champion, he, of course, have many people going after him. Specifically, he'd have Cactus Jack going after him. Jack had this weird point in his career where he's actively wrestling, but he's also sort of managing and recruiting people, because he's technically managing Barbarian here and training him, but he's also managing Tony Atlas, because I watched a match where suddenly Tony Atlas's goatee is coming out and managed by Cactus Jack. I'm like, oh, okay. Guess he's doing that now too. Specifically, Jack would challenge Simmons for the world title on a previous class champion show and lose. So thus he would then start training his protege, Barbarian, to get a title shot this night.
Okay.
As to why Barbarian gets a title shot, I mean, are you going to tell him no?
Probably not, no.
Yeah, it's all yours, buddy.
Barbarian is out first, led by Cactus Jack. His music is quite major key for the bad guy. Sounds quite heroic. Ron Simmons comes out to smooth jazz with his hands on Teddy Long's shoulders, surrounded by a whole bunch of security in suits. JR says that Burt Reynolds is an FSU alumni and a major Ron Simmons fan, and is watching tonight. Jesse, referring to the entourage, says it's the same thing that happened to Muhammad Ali. You win the title, and you get 40 new friends that all want a piece of your wallet. JR defends Teddy Long's integrity. The two repeatedly can't move each other on lockups and charges, so Barbarian consults with Jack. One more double clothesline, and nobody moves. Barbarian wants another, but Simmons ducks the clothesline this time and knocks him down with a flying shoulder block. So was Jack's advice just keep doing what you're doing until he does something clever to beat you?
I guess so.
Simmons wins another couple exchanges, and Barbarian keeps going for advice from Jack, who tells him to hurt him, then pin him, which is kind of like telling someone playing Dark Souls that you win by hitting the boss.
Yeah.
That part's obvious. The question is how.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for Barbarian, he thinks pretty quickly himself. When he gets on the apron, Simmons grabs him, but Barbarian snaps his neck across the ropes and beats him up outside and inside, including a run into the ring post that Jesse claims would be a DQ if Jack hadn't distracted the ref. I cannot think of a single match where that has ever been a DQ.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Was it one of the things that Bill Watts listed in his list?
It was not.
Okay, so there you go. Barbarian rolls into the ring to break the count and just kind of lies there talking to Patrick, who I assume advised him to stop listening to Jack as the man thinks sunset flips to the concrete floor are a great idea.
Yeah.
Barbarian sends Simmons to the barricade and forearms him as they get back in, but gets distracted roaring and sunset flipped for 2. Barbarian locks in a Cobra Clutch, or Shinonamake, per JR, and Jesse is highly amused by the latter and says it incessantly.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick checks the arm, and Simmons keeps it up on the third check, then repeatedly backs hard into the turnbuckle to knock Barbarian free. Simmons' spinebuster gets 2, and he hits a flying shoulder block, but Jack has Patrick distracted. Simmons decks Jack, but Barbarian big boots Simmons, climbs the furthest possible turnbuckle from him.
Yes.
So Simmons nicely rolls towards him so he can hit his flying headbutt for 2, then a clothesline for 2. Barbarian, in disbelief, charges again, but Simmons counters with his power slam for the 3 count and the win. Watching Cactus Jack frantically gesture on the outside on that counter is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Simmons rolls out before Patrick can even give him the belt, so Patrick follows him to deliver it. Thoughts on this one?
I thought this was a very enjoyable match. They knew exactly what kind of match it's going to be. Just a big power match. And they really leaned into it. And they did it with a lot of sort of nuance as well. So it's not just punching and, like bear hugs. I know you love bear hugs. But they mix up the striking and the pacing. You have the added aspect of Cactus Jack as an outside manager, actually doing something unlike the previous match we had. I really got into the whole story of Ron Simmons. His whole thing is he's young and strong and powerful, and here's a guy who's arguably his equal, like a strong match for him. How can he beat someone that can match him up so well? If he's fighting, Pillman, he's got a power advantage, or you might have a, endurance advantage over someone who's bigger but slower. Here, it's close as they could get to like what they call like a mirror image match where you're fighting a close rival.
That's fair, yeah.
So is this match complex? No. Is it amazing? I wouldn't say it's amazing. I will say it is quite enjoyable, though.
Okay.
I like that the submission holds didn't slow things down too much. And I thought the hard hits were nice, and the extra effect of Jack interfering just enough. It never became an actual like handicap match like sometimes they overdo it with newer or newish heel managers. They feel need to constantly interfere because they don't have the balance right. Like he's like, if I'm the manager, I got to interfere and help my man, but you're probably going to read 2 minutes. It's very distracting.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. I thought the match was very measured in the right way. Obviously, the bit with the I'm going to go to the far right thing and wait for you. I don't know who's specifically at fault there. I mean, it could be that Ron was supposed to be closer, and Barbarian just remembered, like, I got to go here and do this thing, and Simmons rolled to him.
Yeah.
It seems like that's what was probably what happened because, not to blame Ron Simmons, obviously, but because of the angle, like the hard camera shot they used for the ring, it makes most sense. They dive from that corner.
It's such a weird thing for Barbarian to do that he must have specifically been told to go for that corner.
Exactly, yeah.
For some reason, they were like, we're going to get a shot of it or something like that we need you to do this one. Because otherwise, like, you would just say, oh, Ron fell closer to this corner. I'll go to this one.
Yeah.
There's no reason he has to do it from that one. So that's such a funny point.
Yeah. My only little critique, and it's pretty minor, is that I thought his snap on his spine buster we did earlier for a 2 count was really good. And obviously, he'd be really well known for his spine buster.
Yeah.
Rivaling Arn Anderson in his own sort of way. Whereas his power slam wasn't bad. And I'm certainly not going to pretend that muscling a guy like Barbarian up over your head and down to the mat is easy. But I thought he had less snap on that counter move than he did on the spine buster.
Yeah, I think the spine buster he's more famous for than his power slams. Those power slams are good, but they're just like, if you think of Ron Simmons and think of a single move, it's going to be the spine buster. It's so powerful looking.
Yeah. It's kind of a middle ground between the real good snap power slam like a Dustin Rhodes or Randy Orton uses now, where it's just real quick and just slam over real fast. And to get the impact is the key.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get the other way, which is like a British Bulldog or even a Dr. Steve Williams version of the Oklahoma Stampede, where you're building up to like a run and then a fall. And it's the impact of the building up momentum that way. His is kind of between those two. So it's not bad, but I kind of prefer one or the other.
It's a power slam without a strong identity in this match anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's interesting. So you ended up liking this a great deal, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I did not.
Oh, all right.
I didn't think it was outright bad.
No.
But to me, I found it a bog standard big man match. And it had, to me, a very slow pace and not much in the way of variety. Simmons has more than this, and Barbarian has more than this. I've seen both of these guys in more intense, faster paced matches. What we got here, I thought, was some basic power contests and striking. One slow hold filmed mostly from the wrong direction, which admittedly is not their fault.
Yeah.
And finally, a few of the sort of power moves that I thought we should have gotten for the entire match. So to me, there just was not a lot to this, and I thought it was a real shame, particularly given that the crowd, who was kind of dead after the last match, could have used some big, bold, hard-hitting action to wake them up. They do make a little noise for Simmons, but not as much as I was hoping. And that's because this match, I don't think, gave them that much to cheer for. It's a shame because I like Simmons a lot, and I like Barbarian most times, but I just found this very underwhelming.
Oh.
I genuinely thought, oh, we're going to come in and both be like, it was all right. But I mean, I can see what you're saying on it, that they do like lean into these are two big guys. Where I will definitely agree with you is they've done a good job with match of opposites.
Yeah.
I just think the one that Ron Simmons had that I think hit a lot of the same themes but did it better was his one against Steve Williams. It hits that similar, like, we're going to run into each other. We're going to just like really nail each other. And I think that one had a disappointing ending with like a count out or something. But there's other Ron Simmons matches where you're just like, he's going to do big, beefy hits with people and everything. And I just feel like this one doesn't quite reach the level that I want.
I gotcha. For me, I broke up my viewing a little bit. Obviously, our second viewing, the first one we watched straight through together.
Yeah.
I watched the previous match, the Chono Rude match, and this pretty much in succession. There'd be a little break between the two of them.
Oh, interesting.
So I spotted a lot more of the little things that get crowd reactions, more fighting while in a hold and getting out of them rather than just sort of laying there and struggling a bit more like in that previous match, and just more strike exchanges. For me, it felt like, I don't know if it was, but it felt reactionary to the previous match.
Okay.
Where they went, look, these guys are reacting to this more dry, clinical, sort of legit wrestling, like a Luthez kind of thing. So guys go out there, hit each other, get some nice runs in there, fight on the outside a bit. All the extra little things I thought were missing in the previous match, as good as it was on a technical level, for me, were in this one.
That's so fascinating. So I made a point because I knew I would be somewhat down after the prior match. And I, even despite my slightly more positive reaction to it than when we watched it, I still kind of was.
Uh-huh.
I made a point to stop there and watch this one in the final match on its own night, separate from the last match, purely so that I would be in a better mood coming into it. And I don't know, maybe that backfired.
I don't know.
Normally that tends to help me with things like that. But yeah, I'll give it another look at some point and see if I pick up on more of it.
Well, for me, it was about matching the way the show would be watched, whether it was watched the first time, live, or you've like me in the later days of wrestling, you go to, sadly not exist anymore, Blockbusters and, rent the VHS or DVDs of shows. So either way, whether you're watching it live or on delay of even years, you're watching a show straight through. So for me, going from the Chono Rude match to this one is the way it's going to be viewed, and there's the opposite reactions and different viewpoints of it. For me, worked in the favor of this match.
Okay.
But I could see the other point of view as well.
Yeah, I think I had the same reaction to this match both ways that we watched it, going straight through in our original watch and then in the let's put a break between them thing. So I was trying to give it the best chance I could and just didn't get there. But I'm kind of glad because we rarely have massive disagreements on matches.
Yeah.
Hey, we got one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a point where for covering this same show and all we do is agree with each other, at a certain point, maybe not the most interesting show.
True, yeah.
Hopefully we make it entertaining, but I can see, what's a differing viewpoint sometimes, yeah.
Yep.
As hinted at before, Ron Simmons coming off of this match would begin a series with Rude, which would lead to, well, not a match. As noted, he was stabbed in the back by a neurosurgeon and had to drop out challenging Ron Simmons for this title at Starrcade. Tying everything together, they needed a substitute man to challenge Ron Simmons for the title, and who did they get? The guy who needed a substitute tag partner at this show, Dr. Steve Williams, who would come in to challenge for the world title at Starrcade 92. He get to be the substitute guy for a change.
Yeah.
Good for him. I remember enjoying that match quite a bit as well.
We cut to Tony, who is with Bruno Sammartino to start.
Okay, Jim, thank you very much. And Ron Simmons is the man, still the world heavyweight champion. Great match, Bruno.
Tony, that barbarian is extremely tough, but Ron Simmons is showing the whole world that he is the champ.
I tell you, we are in the midst of a tremendous youth movement in WCW, and very happy we have some of the greatest young athletes in the world with us right now.
Yes, and I see this Eric Watts. I wrestled his dad, and believe me, they didn't come any tougher than him. But it does my heart good to see people like Eric Watts, Brian Pillman, Shane Douglas, Dustin Rhodes, because this is a future of professional wrestling, and what a bright future with such great talent.
Okay, let's bring Eric Watts in right now. And Eric, we've had some tremendous action World Championship Wrestling.
Any good reaction for Eric Watts?
We just saw.
Well, it's good to be out here, and thank you, Mr. Sammartino and Mr. Schiavone, for having me out here. The competition in WCW is the top around the world. And I think today it was just a part of what all these people at home paid for and Philadelphia paid for. They got that championship match. And these people are very intimidating, like Ron Simmons. Ron, fantastic match, brother. Thank you.
Ron, congratulations. Still the man, the world heavyweight champion. I tell you what, it was a tremendous encounter.
I'll tell you what, Tony, it's far from being over. I've got more matches, I'm sure, in the future with the Barbarian. As you can see, the man is tough, quick, and agile, and it's not over with yet. It's never over with for a champion. This is just another step in a long reign for Ron Simmons as champion. And Eric, you got a long way to go, but you're on a good road to being there, brother. And that's one way of getting this, is hard work.
Hey, Ron, Bruno, I'm sure you got a question for the world champ here.
You know, Ron, I gotta say, I was watching that match and that Barbarian's no easy pickings, and then with that maniac outside, Cactus Jack, to come out on top. Ron, you're showing the whole world that you are the champ. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Coming from you, in your day, you were a great champion, and I take that as a compliment.
Okay, the world champ Ron Simmons, and of course, Eric Watts, along with Bruno Sammartino. Let's go back to the ring. We're almost set to go with our spin the wheel, make the deal match. Jim, Jess?
I kind of like this segment. It's busy, but there's a lot of nice camaraderie in it between Tony, Bruno, Ron Simmons, and even Eric Watts.
Mm-hmm.
Watts comes off a little clumsy in his phrasing at times, but as earnest and complimentary towards the champ. And Ron, for his part, does a great job of praising his opponent and then giving Watts some inspiration. Bruno and Ron's interaction is a great sort of respectful moment between generations as well. Even if it is a little bit funny that Tony says Bruno has a question just before Bruno very much does not ask a question.
Yes, I noticed that.
It's felt like the sort of thing that you would get with sports reporters at actual events. And you know I love when WCW goes more legit sports, so it's no surprise that I thought this was nice.
Yeah. My only issue is, other than, again, Tony setting up Bruno. Bruno sure has a question for you. Oh, no, he doesn't. No, my only issue is that it's very transparent. They're like, Bill Watts in the back saying, hey, Eric, go out there. Hey, you guys, talk about how good Eric is.
Yes, yeah.
It's super not subtle. I mean, look, it's a thing that happens in any business. Wrestling business is just very transparent because it's a TV industry. And, if you're the guy running the company and your son wants to be in the sport, you're going to heavily promote him. And I don't disparage Bill Watts for loving his son and thinking he should be a star, but really coming on strong.
Yeah, what I appreciate about this segment is that, well, Tony and Bruno do go ahead and build up Eric Watts. Bruno especially makes sure to name drop a bunch of other young talent.
Yeah.
As well. So he does a good job of making it more about a youth movement. And Eric Watts happens to be a representative of that youth movement rather than just let's praise Eric Watts.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like they got a directive that was a little bit hinky and then they kind of made it something useful.
Yeah. I can see that. There are far worse segments where it's very blatantly, you got to promote this person and say how great they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, the setup is definitely very much, this is my son, say how great my son is. But he didn't seem to force what they had to say.
Mm-hmm.
So they got, again, Bruno pushes the youth movement, and Ron's like, hey, you got a long way to go. It's a very measured thing.
Yeah.
If it was really bad, you go like, one day you'll be challenged for this thing or something. That would be pretty forced.
He basically says, hey, you're early in your career, you got some ways to go, but work hard and you could get here.
Yeah.
Which I think is a totally fair thing to say. It's not insulting.
No.
But it's not like overly praising, but it does build the guy up as someone who has potential.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the best version of a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Everyone in it handled it well.
And at least they didn't have to do this after the Eric Watts dropkick at Starrcade 92.
Yes. Yeah, he directed, he directed a few televised matches. Nothing amazing from what I've seen, but nothing terrible either.
We cut to JR and Jesse, and JR describes the pole for the coal miner's glove being attached to the ring, and Jesse covers the match concept again as we get a shot of the glove. JR says all the sanctioned matches have ended, and both guys have released WCW from responsibility for any injuries they receive in this. Jesse says if they can't get the glove, maybe he'll get it and use it on JR. JR asks why, and also doubts that Jesse could climb the pole. So our final match is a non-sanctioned lights-out match, Jake the Snake Roberts versus Sting, in a coal miner's glove match. The referee for this one is Mike Atkins.
Jake Roberts left the WWF just after WrestleMania 8 because basically there was a position open for a writer because Pat Patterson was fired over some legal stuff that happened. Won't go into that. You can Google it yourself. But he thought he'd get the writer position because it was freed up. Vince McMahon decided to leave the position open until he'd eventually rehire Pat Patterson. Jake did not like that, asked for his immediate release from the company, which would lead to his final match in WWF against Undertaker, where he'd famously do they call it the jobber jog, where you just run out to the ring, you're getting in and out as fast as you can. kind of thing.
Yeah.
He wasn't bothered by this because, WCW is a strong competitor. He's just going to go there, sign a great deal with management in charge, get a nice $3 million a year contract. It's going to be great. It's got to wait these 90 days for my contract to end, my no-compete clause to end. Oh, apparently about 3 days before my no-compete clause ends, and I can officially sign this contract they sent me, there's new management, and that management is Bill Watts. Bill Watts doesn't like me because we had some issues when he was running UWF in Mid-South. So now my $3 million a year contract is now $200,000 a year.
That's quite a bit less. I mean, I'd still take it, but that's quite a bit less.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's 15 times smaller than it was.
Yeah.
Not great. Well, he signed a contract, and it's not what he wanted. So now they debut him on TV. He would do a segment where he attacks Sting. The idea is going right for the top guy that's not world champion. He would get a pinfall victory over Sting in a multi-man tag team match alongside Vader, Rick Rude, and of course, Super Invader, everyone's favorite wrestler. One of these things is not like the other. That attack and that pinfall gives him leverage and will lead to the very famous, as we covered, segment. Spindle will make the deal, and then that's where we are tonight.
Roberts is out first to what will eventually be the Hollywood Blondes theme.
Oh, yeah.
JR builds up that they've got anti-venom on site and a medical technician in case Jake's Cobra gets involved. Sting is out next in his excellent blue, white, and gold coat with blue and white face paint. Finally, something gets a full reaction. Although one guy in a Rick Rude shirt is dismissive.
Well, sure.
He kind of does I don't actually like Sting type of pose, but in a way that I'm inclined to think that he would be cheering his head off if the camera was not pointed at him.
Yeah, it's very performative, yeah.
Roberts directs Sting's attention away from the pole and immediately climbs, but Sting pulls him down and slams him, then makes his own try, so Robert pulls him down and lands a forearm. Sting and Roberts trade hard strikes, and Roberts checks the tooth. Roberts dodges a dropkick and throws Sting over the top rope. This is non-sanctioned and no DQ. Sting counters a ring post ram, then runs around and through the ring to surprise Roberts and pull him back into it a few more times, damaging his arm. Roberts manages to stop another climb with a belly-to-back suplex, but Sting works the arm with stomps, a hammerlock, and an armbar. They each stop another climb, Sting by crotching Roberts on the turnbuckle, and Roberts flings him through the ropes and hits him with Capetta's chair. Roberts chokes Sting with his wrist tape. Atkins frees Sting, which Jesse questions as he has no power, but I guess technically murder is still illegal, so...
Being unsanctioned doesn't cover everything.
Yeah. Weird spot as Roberts goes for a running knee lift and both he and Sting sell, so it's unclear if Sting was supposed to have been hit or dodged.
Mm-hmm.
Sting goes for a stinger splash, but Roberts dodges and Sting eats turnbuckle. Roberts, nursing his left arm, manages his short arm clothesline. JR says the DDT will be fine as Roberts uses his right arm for that, then is surprised when Roberts uses his left arm to hit it. I was curious, so I looked up a compilation of Jake Roberts' DDTs, and across 2 minutes of DDTs, Jake used the left arm every single time.
Oh.
Hilariously, this match with JR being surprised that he used the left arm was in that compilation.
Of course. Oh. I'm not watching it now, but I picture him doing DDT. That's exactly what I see as well. I see left side, yeah.
Roberts goes to climb, but Sting recovers quickly. Presumably the DDT was weaker due to the left arm injury. Roberts elbows him away, but Sting leaps, grabs the pole, and swings around it to elbow Roberts down. A very cool and gutsy spot. Sting climbs and gets the glove, but meanwhile, Cactus Jack runs down and hands Roberts his Cobra. Sting punches Roberts awkwardly in the back with the glove, and Roberts jerks the snake up to bite Roberts in the face, which it doesn't.
No.
He acts like it does anyway. Roberts falls, and Sting pins him for the 3 count and the win. That had to be the most awkward pin attempt in Sting's career. Imagine trying not to crush a cobra or snake between you and your opponent while delivering a convincing pinfall.
Or just ignoring what's going on to a pinfall as well.
Yes, yeah. Roberts visibly pulls the snake away and pushes it back onto his face and finally manages to get it to nibble a little. You can see a little blood in later shots. Atkins flees the ring, and Sting stays well away from Roberts. Per Jake on the snake pit, he really wanted it to bite down on him solid so that he could let go and it would dangle from his face. But no dice.
Oh.
Roberts is pretty down on himself for this match on his show, far more than he should be, I think. He said he felt sick after the match and didn't feel like he brought enough to it and let Sting down. in part because he hated the stipulation, but also he says he was kind of struggling with his addiction at the time. He does have some mostly 4-letter words for Bill Watts on the subject as well.
I'm shocked.
Anyway, Roberts escapes with Jack, doing a fair job of selling losing strength and control over his body due to poison as he stumbles to the back. Per Tony, that was not a cobra, thus why Jake didn't die.
Mm-hmm.
I figured it was either that or it was made venomless. Jake didn't explain on his show that I could find, sadly, but I can't imagine even WCW would be stupid enough to put an extraordinarily venomous snake among a big crowd with nothing but Jake Roberts' grip keeping it from slithering off and biting whoever looked at it funny.
Yeah, I see that.
Thoughts on this one?
I thought this was a pretty decent match. It's a neat pairing because, as we'll talk about, there's not a lot of times you see this pairing of people. They had pretty good chemistry. Obviously, they have to work with the gimmick. That's kind of a given. For me, the best parts of the match, and honestly, most of the match, was kind of ignoring the actual stipulation of, hey, you got to go get this glove.
Mm-hmm.
They mostly just worked a regular match. So for me, that helped. I've seen matches where they have a gimmick like you got to climb this corner to get something, and like that's their main focus. Wrestling or fighting is secondary. Thankfully, that was not this case. There's a lot of nice little touches that I thought Roberts did that find his character. Like the way he would sell was really, really thorough. And so we try to look intimidating. We do certain moves. His general mannerisms really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, I can understand him being down on himself because, I mean, he's been through a lot. He seemed like he's on the other side of it, so I'm glad he's past all that. So I can see if he has maybe sort of more skewed perspective. And, you know, most people are their own worst critics, so again, I understand that as well. The parts above in the finish are not great. I'm glad that someone in the match, specifically in the match, could actually climb the pole. I'm reminded of the last time we saw it where it was Big Bubba and John Tenta. Another one could clearly climb that pole, which is like plastic strapped down to the thing. I'm like, they're not climbing that thing.
Yeah, I'm also glad that this pole looks a little sturdier than that one did. Because that one was terrifying.
Yeah, I think that match is later. So usually you learn something. You're unlearning stuff in WCW.
Yeah, that was 1996.
I was going to say, yeah, that is later, isn't it? Yeah. It's a case of where they have a decent to good, strong end points, honestly, match. But they have to do these pole spots, and ultimately the finish is predetermined. Spoiler alert. And they handle it about as well as you can, but it's just like, it's a bit of a comedy of errors because it's like, so much of this is a hat on a hat. We have a pole and you got a weapon, and also here's a snake all in a big pile together here. It's very distracting and silly.
Yeah.
The idea that Sting is just going to pin him casually while he's being bitten by a cobra, quote unquote, is kind of funny.
Yes.
It may be in Sting's mind is like, man, I can't stop this snake. You know, I've got this big metal covered glove. I probably could stop the snake, but I'll pin him. That way he'll get help right away as fast as I can get. Maybe that's good guys Sting's logic. I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting thinking of that you are a face, like the biggest face that WCW has, and a person is being poisoned to death in front of you, and you're like, I'm going to pin him.
Yeah, exactly.
I hadn't thought of it that way until now, but yet that is pretty ridiculous.
If you can watch the match just knowing, yeah, here's a really dumb, pre-planned, convoluted nonsense at the end, I think you actually could kind of enjoy the match itself, even though it's not amazing, but it's better. The match outside the finish is better than its reputation because of the finish.
Yes. I'm pretty much in agreement. I do not think the actual match here is bad at all.
No.
Sting and Roberts put on a perfectly fine contest with hard hits and a lot of emotion, and they woke up the pretty quiet crowd.
Yeah.
The arm injury angle preserves Jake's DDT somewhat, while letting Sting have a quicker than normal recovery. I'd still prefer it be sold longer than it was, but they needed to move fast to Sting's stunt, so at least they give a reason for the DDT not being, as Jake was fond of saying, the end.
Mm-hmm.
The action is pretty good, and they make just enough use of things that would normally get them disqualified and get just about the right balance with the pole as well. They go for it a few times, but only a few. Considering Jake's story, they may have had as short as an hour to plan this, so if so, this is quite good for that. I imagine that what they would have done with that is just have planned out some stuff that works regardless of the match type, and then add match-specific stuff to whatever gets spun.
Mm-hmm.
But still. Yeah, what lets the match down is really just that ending. It just doesn't work. It comes off as comedic and obviously fake.
Yeah.
It's bizarre that Sting only punches him in the back, too, when the whole point of the glove is to KO the person with a punch to the head.
Yeah.
The presentation and the timing and the execution are all just terrible there. and they bring down an otherwise perfectly fine, if unexceptional, match.
Mm-hmm.
I generally agree with anyone, Jake included, who says that one of the other choices on the wheel would have been better, but Sting and Jake generally did their best with this, and it's a reasonable watch until the ridiculous ending. Given more matches, I think these two could have had a really good feud, but as I'm sure Al is going to get to, that is not really to be.
Correct, yes.
Just on the ending specifically, my suspicion is regardless of which match it was, that was always going to be the ending in some form.
Yeah.
In some versions of the match, I think they would plan for it to be Sting wins the match and Jake tries to go after him and gets bitten by the snake afterwards.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it's intermingled with the ending like it is currently, but I think Jake is always getting bitten by a snake at the end of this match.
Yeah, absolutely.
So unfortunately, I don't think they can blame that on short notice.
No. Roberts would go on to work a number of house shows afterwards and appear in the November 2nd episode of WCW Saturday Night, where we talk about participating in the King of Cable tournament. He would not be seen again. He'd do a video saying, I'm really excited to go into this tournament, and he would be replaced by Barbarian and leave the company. And of course, as mentioned, Sting would enter the same tournament. This probably was the idea if he stayed around. They'd face each other again somehow in this tournament. Maybe it would have been Sting and Roberts at Starrcade.
That's an interesting thought, yeah. Could have had a totally different King of Cable final. I mean, the one we got was great, but it would have been interesting to see like more Sting and Roberts matches, definitely. I think they've got some real chemistry, like you said, so.
Absolutely, yeah. Sting would do quite well on the road to Starrcade, beating Brian Pillman and Rick Rude in a non-title match to get to that tournament final.
JR throws to Tony and Bruno, who think it is only the beginning between Jake and Sting. Tony thanks Bruno for being with him, and Bruno says he enjoyed it. Tony throws to JR and Jesse, and JR agrees that there's more to come between Jake and Sting. It's always funny to hear things like that after we've talked about the way that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Jesse says, that depends on if Jake survives the bite. It may be over. Making me briefly wonder if the explanation for Jake leaving was that he died of snake poison.
That would have been very dark.
Yeah. JR says Barbarian deserves a rematch, and Jesse agrees, but says that there's a lot more contenders. JR builds up Starrcade, and Jesse takes a cheap shot at Atlanta for failing to win a championship 2 years in a row. JR signs off, and we get some fireworks. And Halloween Havoc 1992 is done. So overall thoughts on Halloween Havoc 1992?
I think it's a pretty good show overall. It's a mixed bag of generally good action and then some weird nonsense thrown on top of it or intermingle with it. So you can go, wow, I enjoyed this, but oh, well, also this happens, or this match is good, but maybe this finish isn't great. There's not a lot here that is just solidly, this is great, period, the end. There's always a but, or there's an although, or in spite of, chew it. General presentation is good. I wish they had more of the Halloween theme for sets and other things other than just the opening video package. They clearly cheaped out on other things when they spent the money on the wheel. There's generally some good matches. I think it's a show worth watching. There's definitely some nonsense you have to get through and accept as part of it, whether it's the whole snake bit angle or how they overcomplicate 2 title match finishes. But as a whole, it's a decent show. I think it could definitely be better. I think they really lean into the Halloween theme. It could either be goofier or just more fun, but it's still pretty good.
I had a somewhat different reaction to it, and I'm betting that the reason for it is that I had a different reaction to the Ron Simmons and Barbarian match than you did.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, WCW did not break the streak. This is the very definition of it's all right show. It's not really bad, it's not really good. It leans slightly more towards the bad for me just due to the arrangement. The matches that struggled for me for one reason or another are all together. The last 3 matches on the show. So the show, for me, hit a point where it declined and it never quite recovered. You can see it as well in the crowd reaction. They're noticeably quieter for the final 3 matches than for the earlier ones. And while they don't entirely give up on the show, it's clear they just aren't as into things anymore. A reaction that I very much shared when we watched the show together, Al.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are points on this show where the struggle is understandable given circumstances, but the struggle is still there. On rewatch, there were more things to like in the last 3 matches than I at first detected, but they were still a notable step down from the early content. It's enough to put the show solidly in middle of the road territory for me, rather than outright bad, but that's all. Promos and general storytelling are also pretty variable. Some are simpler than expected due to circumstances not fully in WCW's control, like Gordy's exit, and some are just strange or outright missing due to choices WCW appears to have made, like us not getting actual promos out of Sting or Jake, possibly because they may be having to plan their match out backstage and don't have time.
Yeah.
There are some pretty notable segments as well, like Paulie and Medusa's brawl, but those are placed quite oddly in the show and interfere with other storytelling, like whether Rude and Medusa are still heels in the Chono match. Commentary is also a bit of a mixed bag. JR and Jesse have some great discussions, and there's some points, particularly the Rude Chono match, where they draw out much more story content than is immediately obvious. But they also make several jokes that just don't land. They don't seem to play off each other that well, and they fail to respond to each other's comments, make weird political references, and occasionally just get stuff outright wrong. I think they're more good than bad for the show, but I sometimes found them distracting. Production was a serious downgrade.
Yeah.
Aside from the great opening video package and spooky font, we've lost any real sense of set design on the show compared to prior years. Camera work is downright erratic at times, focusing on the wrong things and even during promo segments, or showing action from precisely the wrong angles. And for some segments, they just don't seem to have planned things out or rehearsed properly, so you get awkward moments like Sting having to just stand there during the wheel segment, or Tony clearly going to interview him and Sting just walking away. There's no real standout moments of absolute awfulness on the show, other than maybe the ending to Sting vs. Roberts, but that's short. But the general feel is just awkward, poorly designed, and always slightly off. For one reason or another, things just start going slightly wrong on this one, and once they do, it never quite manages to get back on track.
For me, I'd say it's a conditional recommendation. Depending on how you like certain matches, yeah, the last half of the show could be better or worse for you. I did enjoy the Barbarian Simmons match more than you did, so I think it gave me a bit of hope that was somewhat squashed by how ridiculous they made the ending and working around a Comar's glove match. So slightly more positive on my end, but this isn't a strong recommendation. I think there's matches and segments you should absolutely check out. Again, your mileage may vary on Chono versus Rude or Simmons versus Barbarian, but stuff like Steamboat and Pillman is really good, and the tag match is really good as well. So it's not a lost cause, but it's definitely a mixed bag.
There are definitely things on this show that I think if I was giving you individual matches, hey, go look this up, there's definitely Steamboat versus Pillman for sure, the tag title match for sure, are ones that I would comfortably include in a list of matches that I was giving to someone to say, here's stuff you should see from the Halloween Havoc series.
Mm-hmm.
Match of the night and MVP then. So Al, what is your match of the night?
So as always, I try to look at the entire package. Sometimes there's matches where I might enjoy the action, but the finish might be bad, or maybe it's lacking in sort of stakes. So it could be a really good competitive match, but if it's not for anything, it's hard to be as invested as a bigger match, which isn't as good. For me, I think it leaned towards the big man fighting, I'd say as a whole, rather than the technical stuff, which I do love technical wrestling, but the weight presented in this show is not as great. Exception being, of course, Steamboat and Pillman. That is a really good match. But again, there's no stakes to it. It's just a good match that exists and you should watch it, but it's not for a title or contendership or anything. So for me, it comes down to stuff like the Nikita Koloff versus Vader match, which, while rough for Koloff, obviously is very enjoyable as a back and forth big man fight match.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's slightly stronger in that regards than the Barbarian Simmons match, although I did enjoy that one quite a bit as well. Other things just let down some matches to varying degrees, like how complicated they did finish for the tag match, or the whole snake spot for Jake and Sting. It's a narrow victory, I'd say, for me, for the match I want to watch and never take part in. That is the Koloff versus Vader match.
That's probably the one I would have bet on going into this. Mm-hmm. For me, this came down to Pillman versus Steamboat and Rhodes Windham versus Williams Austin. I'm going to go with the latter. It's a really, really good tag match. It's long, it's intricate, it's exceptionally well performed, with quite a lot of subtle story details. And not only is it not hurt by the replacement of Gordy with Austin on short notice, it actually makes that part of the story, turning a potential negative into a massive positive. So credit to all four guys. It would have been very easy to be thrown by the change or let it affect them and hurt their performance, but they really embraced it and used it.
Mm-hmm.
Credit also to whoever picked Austin as the replacement, as he was a good choice to be able to slot in due to his history with the Rhodes.
Yeah. If that match had a definitive finish, regardless of who actually won, I think it would have edged out Koloff Vader for me.
I think I could have gone with something different if it weren't for the story of how the match came to be. Gives it a little extra credit to overwhelm the fact that the finish is maybe not ideal.
I can respect that. Sure.
MVP?
So for me, I went to someone that stood out in a match that, for one reason or another, didn't hit exactly where I wanted to, or if they had extra little bits throughout, like if they got a promo package or something. So I would mention someone like Ron Simmons, who I thought did his part well and even did that letter segment bit well in addition to that. Pretty much everyone in the tag match, again, hard circumstances and working through it pretty well. Steamboat and Pillman are both really good in their match. It'd be really easy to just say, Rick Steamboat's great, here's his MVP. Believe me, I've done it many times.
Yep.
And with merit.
Yeah.
If I was going to pick someone from the 6-man, I'd probably lean slightly more towards Arn, although Eaton and Hayes are both really good in that match as well. Arn, for the extra edge of embracing the crowd loves me and what's going to play up to it, is a nice little touch from a veteran like that. It's a nice show. Or even Koloff in, Failing or Vader. I love Vader. I think the fact that he legit injured the guy does kind of take him out of MVP status, because
a little bit, yeah.
It's hard to ignore that. So I'm going to go with someone that was put in a tough situation, really excelled, and showed the company that he has a strong future, even if people that came in later didn't agree. So for me, my MVP is Stunning Steve Austin.
Well, my MVP is also Stunning Steve Austin.
Hey, there. It's a good pick.
He was slotted into Gordy's spot in the tag title match on quite short notice, and if I hadn't been told, I would not have been able to tell that it was anything other than a storyline thing. He plays his role as unused to working with Williams, but that fits the story, and they quickly get very smooth together. I'm sure it helped that Austin was very used to Rhodes in particular, but still, it's quite an achievement to be put in perhaps the day of the show in a 30-minute time limit draw tag match and not have that fact be easily detectable.
Mm-hmm.
Austin felt like he was always supposed to be there, and that was an amazing performance.
I will say as an initial thing as well, my heart goes out to Jake Roberts because this is his only pay-per-view appearance.
Yes.
Unless we do the Clash Champions where he wrestles in that tag match, it's my only chance to really highlight him. And I thought his performance was good. And obviously, even if we're counting the video, which is not technically on the show, he did a good job in that. But it's hard to get past that lasting image of the ending that they forced him into. So he's my sentimental pick, but I'm still going with Steve Austin.
If it helps at all with it, I have heard that the snake bite was actually Jake's idea.
Oh, okay.
But I get what you're saying. Like, this is literally most likely our only chance to have picked Jake Roberts, and he's one of the greatest heels in pro wrestling. So let's give him his due, even though on this show it did not quite work out to get him to MVP status for one reason or another. Jake Roberts is a very, very good performer and
absolutely
deserves a lot of credit for some amazing heel work over the years. I'm sure there's any number of shows that if we saw from his WWF career or something that Jake could easily have been our MVP.
100%.
It just happened that this was not one. So
yeah.
Yeah. Also, I want to just call out, if she had more involvement in the overall show, it's a fair shot that Medusa could easily have gotten MVP from me on this one.
Yeah.
Her acting in the segment with Paul Heyman is amazing.
Yeah.
She visibly gets close to tears.
Yeah.
But still manages to look tough and like she's going to kick his butt.
Yeah.
And then kicks his head.
Mm-hmm.
If she had a larger role or they'd figured out something more for her to do in that Rude and Chono match or something, I think she could easily have made it there tonight.
Yeah, I can see that. 100%.
And that wraps up our review of Halloween Havoc 1992. Yeah, that rhymed.
Yeah.
If you've enjoyed listening to us tonight, you can find us on Facebook as Let's Go to the Ring. A link will be available in the episode description. Follow us for episode announcements and other show details, and share your own thoughts about each show as we go through. You can subscribe to our show on Apple Podcast, YouTube, YouTube Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, or Pandora. And please, if you've enjoyed this show, give us a rating or review, and share the show through your favorite social media platforms to help others discover us. Many thanks to OSW Review for attendance and pay-per-view figures, and Gina Trujillo for our logo. Next up, Halloween Havoc 1993. Spin the wheel, make the deal. Yes, again.
Why not?
I guess WCW had to justify the enormous amount of cash they must have paid for that wheel.
Mm-hmm.
The early 1990s are not good for those who like WCW to abandon bad ideas. They're just coming off of 2 straight years of Starrcade being Battle Bowl, too.
Yep.
Though to be fair, we did like 1992's version better, so maybe the next spin will be better than this show's, too.
Fingers crossed.
This is Bob Moore for Alec Pridgeon, signing off. Good night, everybody.
Happy wrestling.
Rhodes for stuff. What the heck did I actually mean here? Not sure on that one. Okay. Yeah. I think he just... Whoop, and I bumped my microphone now. Oh, let me let it stop wiggling. There we go. The curse of Halloween Havoc continues. Okay.